One Piece Supreme Control, Chapter 381-400. Chapter 381 _. Both of these books are very good. Among them, Yu Jianshu can control the operation of swordsmanship, and taking people's heads from thousands of miles away is like looking into a bag. This is more than many times greater than the power of the control fruit to control the sword, and it is also countless. The other is this one. Introduction to Pure Yang Sword Qi. One for attacking and one for cultivating qi is quite good, very good. Yang Qing first carefully studied the Introduction to Pure Yang Sword Qi, and after reading the full text, he found that this secret book is a pure practice secret book. It is the real method of becoming an immortal, and this secret book has a strict division of the cultivation realm. According to the division of secrets, my realm at the moment should be innate. And the next step is to build a foundation. Introductory chapter, you can cultivate to Jindan. Yang Qing's realm at the moment is at the peak of the innate realm, and it only takes one step to enter the foundation. Of course, the division of power in this manual is only the definition of different cultivation systems. It's just a rough mark. If you really want to be strong, you still have to consider all aspects of the situation. In his mind, Yang Qing carefully deduced this recipe, and only opened his eyes after running the simulation 99 times. Then, his pupils shrank, becoming a pinhole-sized hole. Then, his robes moved without the wind. A mighty sword intent soared out into the sky, and the void was trembling and shaking. As soon as this terrifying sword intent was released, the space above the sky was distorted. Taizu, who was rushing forward, immediately trembled, and a look of horror appeared in his eyes. He felt that there were countless sharp auras hanging anywhere on his long body, and his whole body was shaking. What is this? In the blink of an eye, Taizu discovered that the source of these terrifying breaths was the human being on him, and he couldn't help cursing in his heart. It's this guy again. Did Ben Long have any grudge against you in his last life? I've been blamed for this, bastard. At this time, Yang Qing, he has already started to operate his mind, attracting the pure yang sword energy from the outside world. Immediately, streaks of golden rays of light lit up, converging into countless light spots, heading towards Yang Qing's body. As soon as these shining points of light rushed into his body, Yang Qing's complexion immediately changed. Pain, endless pain began to sweep through his body. It was like being inserted into the body by countless thin swords, and then cut. These pure yang sword qi are like the sharpest swords, and they are extremely terrifying. It immediately caused damage to Yang Qing, but the strange thing was that while the sword energy rushed into the body, those tiny wounds healed quickly. It is a strange feeling to make Yang Qing feel real pain and happiness. He could feel that his body was rapidly becoming stronger, but the pain went deep into the bone marrow. The fine beads of sweat on his forehead quickly seeped out, and the pain was unbearable for him. In the Dantian, the area where Baiming Junqi was originally located, was suddenly hit by a crazy golden sword at this moment, and it was just a short 3 breaths, just like a cosmic explosion. His Dantian began to boil frantically, and Baiming's true qi was completely cut by the golden sword in an instant, then destroyed, fused, and strengthened itself. Afterwards, these golden thin swords buzzed and made a loud sword chant, and one by one began to float out. 13 breaths later, a total of 999 small golden long swords were suspended in the sky above the Dantian Sea, emitting a crisp sound of sword chants. They are attached to each other end to end, forming a dense sword wheel, which is very magical. There is a golden light on it, and it looks like a bright sun from a distance. After 3 breaths, the 999 golden swords fluctuated violently again, and then the sword hilt swung and plunged into the sea of Dantian below. In an instant, these tiny golden swords were densely covered in the sea of Dantian. Foundation period. Yang Qing suddenly opened his eyes, the dense sword wheel slowly revolved in his eyes, and a great pressure suddenly enveloped the void. Suddenly, a huge sword wheel appeared above his head. However, after 3 breaths, the sword wheel disappeared, Yang Qing's eyes returned to black and white, and the huge pressure also dissipated. Taizu, who had been tense all the time, let out a long breath at this moment. It's too terrifying, the guy on his back is simply not human. How did he do it? How could he be so powerful? Taizu even doubted whether he would be the opponent of this guy when he grew up to his peak period of adulthood. Taizu, haven't you arrived yet? While thinking about his own question in horror, the human voice suddenly came from his ear, causing Taizu to shudder. It's coming soon. Fang Kai's sword intent completely frightened it. Not to mention that it has not reached its peak period, it is strong, it is there, and under that sword intent, I don't know if it is an opponent. Facing this guy who appeared out of nowhere, Taizu could only obey his orders. On the dragon's back, Yang Qing's eyes flashed with joy. The power of pure Yang Janqi, he has already begun to try, and it did not disappoint him. Chi-chi. As soon as he stretched his finger, a thin sword shining with golden light appeared at the tip, revealing a sharp breath, cutting the void. Yang Qing can clearly perceive that this golden rapier is stronger than a normal blade. Moreover, the high temperature of pure yang is attached to it, which can burn everything, which is very scary. Immediately afterwards, Yang Qing closed his eyes and began to study the swordsmanship again. This time, the time was fast, about half an hour later. He opened his eyes and smiled. Get out. The index finger and the middle finger pointed together to form a sword, and Yang Qing stretched it out sharply. Out. Back paint. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. In the black package, the sword weapon that was just a young sword at the moment suddenly vibrated violently, making a humming sound. After a breath, with the sound of choking, the black cloth shattered, and a long black sword appeared, rushed into the sky, and made a crisp sword groan. Sing. The voice was long and powerful, like the melodious chirping of a young man. After 5 breaths, the slender long sword landed smoothly beside Yang Qing and Taizu, as if they had spirituality, they flew together with them. Yuji and Judian, the world of eliminating demons. Chapter 382 Giants. Yang Qing stood up slowly and looked at the suspended iron sword with a faint smile on his face. With a completely different power attribute from the control fruit, the strange feeling of manipulating this long sword is as if the sword is just a part of his body. Compared with the ability to control the fruit, the swordsmanship is more flexible, and can burst out a powerful sword energy at any time. The distance has also increased. With a wave of Yang Qing's right hand, the iron sword beside him immediately made a buzzing sound, rushing into the sky with a but disappeared in the blink of an eye. However, although he lost the trace of the iron sword in his eyes, he could clearly perceive everything on the long sword. In front of it, the resistance of the air, and everything around it. The speed of Feijian was unbelievably fast, and Yang Qing was almost immeasurable. In an instant, it has already crossed thousands of miles. Suddenly, a dark iron sword appeared in his pupils, and the surrounding scene was clearly visible. Everything is displayed in his eyes. The sea, the ships, and the islands. Through this iron sword, Yang Qing can see everything around him. This is a magical experience. The iron sword seems to have become his clone, allowing him to perceive everything in the endless distance. Taking the enemy's head from thousands of miles away is worthy of such a sword skill. It is like a god. In the endless void above the sea, a jet-black streamer is unbelievably fast. It broke through the barrier of the air, faster and faster. Finally, this flying sword came to an unnamed sea area. Among them, the huge fish kept jumping, and the white scales shone with crystal light in the sunlight. Suddenly, with a hum, the air twisted, and the iron sword in the sky suddenly disappeared. When it reappeared, it was already in front of the leaping big fish. This fish is 50 meters in size, and it is huge in size. However, in the next moment, the dark streamer disappeared, and then penetrated the body of the big fish. It was almost a momentary effort, as if spanning the distance of time and space. Immediately afterwards, the iron sword left and disappeared. After 3 full breaths, the 50-meter-sized fish let out a painful neigh. The body in the air suddenly shattered and turned into a mass of flesh and blood, which was thrown down one after another and fell into the sea. The speed of the iron sword was so fast that it was unbelievably fast, so fast that it was completely invisible to the naked eye. After it passed through the body, it took 3 full breaths before it could react. This is the power of imperial swordsmanship, which is so fast that it is so sharp that it is invincible. About half an hour later, the iron sword came behind Yang Qing with a trembling sound. Then, after circling around Tizu 9 times, he plunged into the dark package behind him and fell into silence again. Just now, he just used the imperial sword technique to control its flight. If it becomes a real spirit sword and uses its own sword spirit, then its power will be even stronger. This is predictable, therefore, the joy in Yang Qing's heart can be imagined. You must know that in this sword immortal system, it is not just a swordsmanship, its stronger swordsmanship has not yet been presented. Yang Qing closed his eyes and continued to comprehend the swordsmanship. Many of the tricks of sword mastery require meticulous comprehension and research, and countless repetitions of practice before they can be mastered. About an hour later, Taiju's dull words entered Yang Qing's ears, causing him to open his eyes. Human, the 2 giants you mentioned have seen it. Although Taizu surrendered, the self-esteem of his dragon clan made him unable to call Yang Qing the master. Of course, Yang Qing wouldn't care either. Hearing what Taizu said, Yang Qing opened his eyes and looked down. On an island, 2 stalwart figures are extremely spectacular, sitting cross-legged on the ground like that, talking face to face. It's these 2 guys. A smile appeared on Yang Qing's face. He stood up and jumped off Taiju's body. The gust of wind picked up immediately, and Yang Qing let his body fall toward the island by letting his body fall freely. After 15 breaths, Yang Qing suddenly stagnated. The strong wind blew dust all over the island, and the 2 giants covered their faces, and a low voice rang out. What? Subconsciously, one of them waved the huge stick in his hand, and a strong force immediately swept out. With a smile, he stretched out a hand, and then stretched out a finger. Yang Qing pointed at the wooden stick that was countless times larger than his own body. Bang! A dull voice came out, and the wooden stick with the giant's natural strength suddenly stagnated. Dongli's face changed immediately, and the power in his hand was inexplicably stopped. But how is it possible? How could someone be able to stop their own power? The dust gradually dissipated, and a small figure appeared in the middle of the 2. Seeing the little man's eyes, the pupils of the 2 giants were constricted. What? It was just one finger that blocked Dongli's attack. Brokey said in shock. Looking at the 2 giants in front of him up close, Yang Qing was really shocked. It was so tall that even if the 2 giants sat cross-legged, they were still like a hill. Their legs are like 2 pillars, their bodies are like rocks, and the whole body is incomparably huge. Looking at it, Yang Qing actually thought of the witch clan in the Legend of the Earth. According to legend, they are indomitable and extremely tall by nature. Who are you? How did you appear here? Dongli said solemnly, putting away his wooden stick in the rumbling. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. He saw that the top of his wooden stick was already covered with cracks, and he couldn't help being surprised. That kid, with just one finger, can directly scrap his weapon. Thinking of his iron sword, after sending the straw hats away, they disappeared, and Dongli's heart was even more heavy. Being able to stand in the air and fight against the power of my giants with one finger. This kid, unfathomable, who is so holy. Yang Qing couldn't help but smile when he saw the faces of the 2 giants that looked like enemies. At this moment, the 2 people have begun to stand up slowly, and the huge figure looks taller, blocking a large area of sunlight. You don't have to look like that. I brought friendship, don't worry. Very sincere smile. Yang Qing's voice is very infectious. I don't care who you are. What are you here for? Get out of here at once. Rocky looked impatient, and shot directly, waving the wooden stick in his hand. Chapter 383 _ The sturdy wooden stick drives the wind, and with a terrifying force, a single blow can destroy a hill. At this time, Yang Qing, who was standing in the void, rushed towards him. This blow is even more powerful than Dongli's random attack. But Yang Qing, with the same expression, still stretched out a finger. "Boy, it's too hateful. How dare you underestimate my family of giants?" Brokey roared angrily, and the wooden stick in his hand added strength again. At this moment, there was a whistling sound of woo 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 in the air, and the air was squeezed like a wave, and waves were pushed towards the distance. After 3 breaths, the stick stopped, and Brokey's face was ugly. His right hand kept exerting force, but the stick remained motionless. That kid, he was really able to resist the attack of the giants with just 1 finger. Withdrawing the stick, Brokey waved again. The gust of wind blew up, and a huge force poured out. After a breath, the stick stopped again. The natural stalwart power of his giant clan actually seemed so weak before Yang Qing's finger. Ah! Brokey couldn't believe that his powers could be so fragile. He kept swinging the wooden stick, and the rumbling sound kept coming. However, one of Yang Qing's fingers has not changed. Even though he is standing in the void and has nowhere to borrow, he still remains motionless. As if the giant's powerful attack was just a breeze blowing gently. After waving it 30 times in a row, Brokey's expression became extremely ugly. "You kid, who the hell are you?" He raised the wooden stick again, this time with only 2 hands, then dropped it heavily and swung it towards Yang Qing. Woo! The sound of the wind was loud, a light flashed in Yang Qing's eyes, a finger finally retracted, and then turned into a claw. All of a sudden, he grabbed out with 1 hand and grabbed hard at the wooden stick that fell on his head. Buzz! There was a pause in the air, and Brokey's attack stopped again. The huge wooden stick is in stark contrast to Yang Qing's small body. The next moment, his right hand suddenly closed, and his 5 fingers pressed toward the wooden stick. After a breath, with a bang, the sawdust flew, and the whole stick in Brokey's hand turned into broken sawdust. Then, an overwhelming force was transmitted to Brokey's body, causing the latter to shake his body and retreat toward the rear. After 10 steps in a row, a huge footprint was stepped on the ground. Finally, he sat on the ground with his butt, his face still full of shame and anger. "I am ashamed that I am not a human opponent by relying on strength alone, and I am angry that the other party despised him so much. 1 finger and 1 hand made him so embarrassed. Dongli, this kid is not an ordinary person." Brokey growled and stood up abruptly. When Dongli heard it, he also nodded. When he hit the first blow, he felt the power of the opponent, which was terrifying. "Let's take action together and safeguard the honor of the giants," Brokey shouted loudly. His face changed, and the honor of the giants was involved, and Dongli couldn't stand anymore. "Brokey, then let go of the battle between you and me, and let's fight for the honor of the giants. Let's take action together and clean up this arrogant kid." Hearing the roars of the 2 giants, Yang Qing's ears were ringing, and he smiled helplessly. No way, he really doesn't have Luffy's natural charm, and can gather all the power that can be used to his side. Therefore, Yang Qing's eyes narrowed. Is it only possible to suppress it with violence? Dongli threw away the wooden stick in his hand, growled lowly, and rushed towards Yang Qing. And Brokey also clenched his fists and hit Yang Qing in the air. Hoo 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 hoo. The wind was surging, and there was a low voice. When the 2 giants moved, the whole island was covered in dust, and when they punched, the air hummed and twisted. Before the huge fist approached Yang Qing, the robe on his body was already violently tossing, and was blown by the strong wind. But at this moment, Yang Qing's face still had that indifferent expression. After a breath, 2 huge fists came to Yang Qing. Every fist is as big as his body, and even exceeds it. It looks daunting. Above the fist, you can see that the twisted and impacted air is violently agitated, and the power contained in it is extremely explosive and majestic. Getting closer, getting closer. At a certain moment, Yang Qing's eyes flashed, and 2 golden swords appeared in his eyes. His fists clenched suddenly, 1 on each side, hitting both sides. Bang! When the two voices merged into one, Dongli and Broki's expressions changed drastically again. Their huge fists, hitting one of the man's fists, didn't even have any effect. This guy, the power is too great. At this moment, even if the two were giants, they had to admit it. Immediately afterwards, Yang Qing released his fist and grabbed it with his backhand, holding the fists of the two in his hands strangely. What? Dongli shouted in shock, and he saw the same look on the face of Broki on the opposite side. Unbelievable and shocked. That tiny boy used some kind of power to grab the fist they just punched. Then, an incomparably terrifying force surged out and enveloped them all. This force is so powerful that even they can't resist it. The bodies of the two actually started to reverse, and then lost their balance. Finally, it got off the ground. They were dragged flying by the kid with one hand and one hand. Gigantic giant. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Two people whose weight was comparable to a mountain range were savagely carried away by a human who was so small that it was not as big as one of their fingers. Who is this kind of power, such a guy? Ha ha ha, wake me up. Yang Qing's voice came out at this time, with a deep smile. He didn't feel that much effort. One hand, two giants, and after being driven by him to rotate 3 times, they were thrown away fiercely. Boom! The huge volume drove the wind and knocked down countless trees on the island. In the face of this huge force, the two giants could not control their bodies. They were thrown out of each other. When they landed, they grabbed the ground and forced themselves. When they stopped, their upper bodies had already entered the seawater. Yang Qing's flick actually caused the two giants to fly directly to the coast. That guy. Who the hell is he? Could he be Whitebeard? The two giants shook their dizzy heads, their hearts full of surprise. Chapter 384 After they were clear-headed, they stood up and walked towards the center of the island with strides. Because of the decisive battle between the two for many years, in the middle of this dense jungle, it has become a flat area. When they came to the center, the two saw Yang Qing standing in the void, holding his fists. Who the hell are you? Dongli asked loudly. My name is Lucifer. I'm here to talk to you about something. Yang Qing said with a smile, I came with good intentions, not to fight. Dongli and Broki looked at each other, and both saw the fear in each other's eyes. The power in this guy's body is stronger than the two of them, which is incredible. What do you want us to do? Broki asked. I have long heard that the giants are the bravest and most powerful race on the sea, and I have always admired them. Come to find too, one is to learn from two powerful warriors. As a result, as the legend said, the giants are powerful, which I admire very much. Yang Qing said with a smile, his face full of sincerity. Compared with humans, the giants are indeed very powerful, this is the truth. And the two of them are the leaders of the giant clan. Just now, he judged that these two guys, in terms of power, have the strength of a lieutenant general. It's just that, for some unknown reason, it turned out to be a soy sauce character in the original. These words made the two giants blushed, but they were happy in their hearts. They have always been proud of their own strength, but the battle just now was lost to the opponent. Under the anger in their hearts, there is nothing they can do. Because they really can't beat each other. And now, this person said that he admired them, which naturally made them very happy. No, you are better. The frank giants just said it directly, making Yang Qing laugh out loud. Second, I want to be a friend of the two of you. Yang Qing said seriously again. This sentence made Dongli and Broki look at each other. Friend. Yes, I want to be friends with the two of you. I know you guys are competing here and want to compete, but after all these years, there is still no result. So, do you want to know who is stronger between you? I can help you to tell which of the two is stronger, and then, after the results come out, we will be friends. Can you? Yang Qing's sudden words made the two giants stunned. The difference. Be friends. They quickly understood, and then there was a raging war in their eyes, and they shouted loudly. "Come on, decide the winner, I've long wanted to decide the winner. I must be the strongest." Dongli roared loudly. "No, Dongli, I must be the strongest, Brokey." Brokey yelled and argued. Seeing the two of them like this, Yangqing shook his head and smiled, knowing that the two had agreed. "In that case, let's get started." Then, he started talking about his method. "You have been fighting for so many years, and you still can't tell the winner, so it proves that you can't tell the winner just by the two of you. So, only through external force." "External force?" The two asked strangely, "What do you mean?" "In the past, when you were on this island, you would never meet other people, and you would never meet someone stronger than you, but now it's different." Yangqing smiled and said, "I think that in terms of strength, you are stronger than you." "The two are stronger. Of course, there is only one." The two giants looked at each other and nodded. They know very well that in terms of strength, they are indeed not the opponents of the guy in front of them. "So, the method is very simple. You fight with me each, and I will decide who is stronger based on the performance of the two of you." "How?" Yangqing said the method, causing the two giants to frown and think. "Both of you and I have only just met, so you don't have to worry about who I will favor." After saying this, Dongli and Brokey just looked at each other and nodded together. "Okay, let's do it like this." Dongli nodded, full of fighting spirit. "Let's go. I'll come first." Brokey rushed forward. "No, I go first." Dongli pulled Brokey behind him and attacked Yangqing. With a look of impatience, Yangqing shook his head and laughed. Fist waving, strong wind surging, Yangqing kept dodging. Let Dongli really be, but he couldn't hit Yangqing with every punch. One of them is in the air, one is on the ground, one is as huge as a mountain, and the other is as small as an ant. However, there was a strange scene. Dongli punched out the wind, and the air was blasted by him, but he couldn't hit Yangqing once, which made him very anxious, but there was nothing he could do. About an hour later, Dongli's forehead was full of sweat, which was not only tired, but also shocking. For an entire hour, he didn't know how many punches he threw, but he didn't even hit a single time, which was simply incredible. "That's good, come on, try your punch. Dongli, throw a fist at me." Yangqing nodded to Dongli with a chuckle, and stopped the body that was dodging. Dongli was rude, he threw a punch, and the next moment a bang came out. The air in front of Yangqing suddenly distorted, but Dongli threw this punch out to the. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. In front of Yangqing, he seemed to have hit a wall, but he couldn't go any further. "What is this?" Dongli asked in shock. "This is the air barrier I formed. Attack as much as you like, and measure your strength." Yangqing smiled. Dongli understood, and then tried his best to bombard the front. After half an hour, Dongli stopped, panting, his arms were sore. "That's it. Then, it's time to test your reflexes." Yangqing stretched out his right hand. Out, an ice blue blade appeared in his hand, and then became huge, and soon, an ice blue longsword with a length of 100 meters appeared. The blade glowed with blue light, and it was made of solid ice. Magic. "Attention, Dongli, dodge my long sword. If you can't dodge it, it's over." Dongli narrowed his eyes, stared at the long sword, and nodded solemnly. "Call." The long sword was swung, and Dongli's figure flashed, dodging the sword. Then, following closely, another sword rushed out, and the air let out an unsupportive chirping. Dongli's face changed, and he rolled on the spot, dodging extremely dangerously. The third sword. Yangqing chuckled lightly. Dongli's eyes have already moved to the extreme. These two pieces seem extremely simple, but the changes in them shocked him. Just 2 sword attacks made his brain cells die. Chapter 385 Requirements. At the moment of his shock, the third sword in Yangqing's hand suddenly swung out. This sword swung out, and the ice blue light shone, making people dazzling. At the same time, in an instant, this sword changed at least dozens of times, becoming erratic and indistinct. This moment, still here, the next moment, but already there. With an unimaginable mystery, Dongley's pupils shrank, and his face changed immediately. The sweat on his forehead fell to the ground and gathered into one piece. After a breath, he jumped to the left. But after a moment, his expression turned to depression. Failed. To test the ability to react and evade, it was only 3 swords, and Dongley failed. From this short test, Dongley also deeply realized the strength of Yangqing. This tiny human being is not at the same level as him in terms of power. He has far surpassed him and can easily defeat you. The Dongley test is over. Yangqing said with a smile, then he narrowed his eyes and said with a smile after 3 breaths, the overall score, I give him 92 points. Dongley's eyes froze, and then he looked at Brokey. This guy, Brokey, has already taken steps towards Yangqing at this moment. When passing by Dongley, his eyes were firm and he spoke with a warlike expression. Dongley, I won't lose to you. Cut. Dongley wiped the sweat from his forehead and sat down on the ground. Come on, Brokey, I believe you already know what to do. Yangqing smiled and gestured. Brokey's eyes were sharp, and with a low growl, he rushed up. After the same 3 tests, Brokey collapsed to the ground. In the 3rd pass, Brokey's test score also failed in the 3rd pass. From this point of view, it can be seen that the gap between this guy and Dongley's strength is indeed very small. How is it? Who is stronger between the 2 of us? Dongley asked loudly. Brokey gasped, and also turned his eyes to Yangqing, looking forward to it. He believed that he had achieved the ultimate. I did my best to do it, and there is not much difference between it and Dongley. Yangqing glanced at the 2 giants, frowned, and then closed his eyes. He didn't answer immediately, but fell into deep thought. This scene made Dongley and Brokey look at each other and became nervous. Of the 2 of them, who is stronger? Fighting for countless years, but never decided the winner. However, this guy's strength is far superior to them, and he must be able to tell them apart. Brokey, composite score, 91.5. In terms of strength, you are the slightest difference between you and Tori. This slight gap cannot be reflected in the battle, but it definitely shows that you are not as good as Dongley. After 10 breaths, Yangqing opened his eyes, spit out such a paragraph, and said the result of the competition between the 2. Immediately, Dongley and Brokey were left on the spot. After 3 breaths, Dongley's expression changed to excitement and excitement at a speed visible to the naked eye. This giant, who is unknown how old, suddenly bent his knees slightly, jumped up, and roared loudly. Ooh! Finally, my Dongley finally won. I won. Dongley was so excited that he fell to his knees on the ground, and the impacted ground raised a piece of dust, and his tears fell from it like a river. The sudden victory, Ran Dongley's whole person is very excited, he is too excited, and even this red can't describe the emotion. The other giant, Brokey, fell to the ground in disappointment, also bursting into tears. Failed, it was me who failed. Woo hoo woo. This huge giant, with a true temperament, actually knelt down and cried, looking very sad. Victory and battle are the honor of giants, and defeat makes Brokey very uncomfortable. The 2 giants burst into tears at this moment, and Yangqing shook his head as he watched, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Such a scene really surprised him. Some were speechless, but also nodded for the true nature of the giant. It was not until half an hour later, when the mood of the 2 giants stabilized, that Yangqing spoke. I said, you have won the battle, are we already friends? Yangqing's voice brought the 2 crying giants back to their senses, and then wiped the tears from their faces. Of course, you helped me and Brokey to end the battle for so many years. You are our friend, please tell us your name. Dongley said loudly. Lucifer, my name is Lucifer. Yangqing said with a smile. Lucifer, I remember, you are a friend of the 2 of us. Brokey also said. Giants are brave warriors who have the courage to admit their mistakes and failures. So, Now you have decided the winner. What's your plan next? Yang Qing asked. Dongli and Brokey looked at each other, lost in confusion. They really don't know what to do. If you don't know where to go, I have an idea. Yang Qing said with a smile. Huh, you're our friend, let's talk. Dongli urged. We believe in you. I set up a pirate team, and there is a lack of giant team. I want you to be the captain of the giant team of my pirate team. Yang Qing said directly, expressing his thoughts. Yes, the purpose of his visit to these two giants this time was to recruit them as his partners. There, he received a revelation from Kuroka's. A person's power is always limited, but a friend's power is. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Is infinite. I want you to be my partner of Lucifer. Yang Qing said seriously, his business seemed very heavy at this moment, which made Dongli and Brokey startled, and then pondered. Partners? What do you mean? You want the two of us to join your pirate group? Dongli asked. Yes, I want you to be my partner. Yang Qing nodded. They looked at each other again and exchanged glances. Brokey took a breath and spoke slowly. We were also captains of the pirates before, but we fought here for such a long time due to a dispute. At this moment, neither Dongli nor I fully understand what is going on in the outside world. You are our friend, and I, the giants, are the race that loves adventures and pursues dreams the most. We promise you to be your partner. However, we have a request. A trace of doubt flashed in Yang Qing's eyes and asked. What request? Chapter 386 Dangerous. Dongli and I lost many partners in this battle. They have been scattered all over the place, and we don't know where they are at the moment. Although we have been fighting, we are all worried about them. Brokey said slowly, in a dull voice like thunder. Let me tell you, Dongli interjected, the two of us are going to find our former partners and summon the giants again. Yang Qing was stunned for a moment, then laughed loudly. Of course, I just wanted to help you find your partner. But I appreciate the giants very much. You know, my pirate group has a team composed purely of murlocs. Dongli was very surprised when he heard this, and said loudly, Murloc. Is it the Murloc from Fishman Island? Yes, it's them. Yang Qing nodded. You are really amazing. We wanted to see Murlocs from the beginning, and we heard that they are an ancient race as magical as our giants, but this happened before they ventured there. I didn't expect you to be able to pull the Murloc as a partner. You are amazing, Lucifer, worthy of being our friend. Dongli exclaimed. Yang Qing burst out laughing, and he was very happy to have successfully become partners with the two of them. It's a pity that I didn't bring wine this time, otherwise I'll have a good drink with you. It's okay, Lucifer, you tell us the name of your pirate group, and then we will find all the giants who are scattered, and we will find you. Brokey said. Okay, you must remember. Our pirate group is called the Death God Pirates. And, the location of our pirate group is the extension of the New World, before Ralph drew. There is a piece there. A glance there are ships that can't be seen, all kinds of races, they cheer each day with thunderous cheers, and they are all our partners. Yang Qing said loudly. Death Pirates, New World. Dongli and Brokey exchanged glances, then nodded heavily, we both remembered. Yang Qing stretched out his right fist, and then said solemnly, Come on, friends, make an agreement, and we will go into the world together in the future. Dongli and Brokey nodded, and then extended their fists in the same way, and touched Yang Qing very seriously. With the honor of the giants, become a member of the Death God Pirates, and protect everything Captain Lucifer has. Fame, never betray. Bang! The three fists collided, making a dull sound. Then, the three of them looked at each other and let out thunderous laughter. An hour later, Yang Qing threw a golden phone bug into Dongli's hands. This is the phone bug of our pirate group. I have already explained to my brothers. Once I find out about the giant, I will tell you. If you have anything, you can also tell them. The brothers will do their best to support you. Brokey stared at the little phone bug, then carefully took it into his arms, nodded and said, "We understand. Please leave with confidence, we will go to the New World to join the army." Seeing Yang Qing's voice gradually disappearing, Dongli was serious. "Come on bro, it's time for us to go too. There are still many unknowns that we don't know. Come on, let's go and make our name together. The honor of the giant family should be upheld by us. This time, in the name of the god of death." Immediately afterwards, there was a rumbling sound on the island, and countless trees were brought down by the two and turned into rafts. In the end, the simple but huge raft was thrown into the sea by the two, and the two huge giants sat cross-legged. The wind blew gently, and the pulp began to slide. The raft began to set off, towards the unknown sea. "Rocky, I'm really excited." "Me too, I really hope to see my old friends soon." The words of the two gradually disappeared, and the huge figure was getting farther and farther from the island. Above the sky, Yang Qing landed on Taizu and laughed softly. "Come on Taizu, let's go to Alabasta, where, if I expect it to be good, there should be a good show going on." Roar. Taizu let out a dragon roar, circled his body a few times, and flew towards the sky quickly, disappearing in a blink of an eye. Alabasta, in a small restaurant. A young man wearing a straw hat with a smile on his face walked in and shouted loudly, "Hungry, hungry, hungry. I want to eat meat, eat meat." This style of painting is obviously Luffy. Of course, this scene may be slightly different from the original. Straw Hat Boy Luffy's eyes lit up as soon as he entered the restaurant. He saw a freckled-faced youth in a remote corner with a spoon in his hand, and then fell asleep on the table with his head tilted. "Ha ha ha, Ace, it's Ace, and I met you here." Luffy ran over with a big laugh, and immediately put his hand on Ace's shoulder. At the moment when his hand moved, Ace, who was sleeping soundly on the table, frowned and suddenly opened his eyes. He turned around at an incredible speed, and after that, his face became a little dazed. "Luffy. Ace. Ha 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 ha." Luffy laughed. You, why are you here?" Ace said in shock. He really didn't expect to meet him here. "Ha ha, Ace, I've already gone to see," Luffy said with a smile. Immediately afterwards, Luffy's partners also entered the restaurant. The crowd did. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. After the conversation, seeing Ace Bing's polite, gentleman-like temperament, they all sighed. How could Luffy have such a big brother? It's unbelievable that someone like you could be Luffy's brother. I also feel amazing that this kid Luffy has such a handsome brother as you. Everyone looked at me and said with a single word, which made Luffy laugh. Having such a troublesome brother, it's really thanks to you for taking care of me. Ace looked polite. Isn't there anything dangerous along the way? Also, this is Alabasta, why are you here? Dangerous. Zoro frowned. I met a mysterious guy, very young, but as strong as a monster. In his mind, Yang Qing's figure flashed. Yang Qing's mysterious power and identity has made everyone brooding until now. Oh, what kind of guy? Ace asked curiously. Should be a swordsman, Zoro said. No, he's a fighter. This was Shanks. Chapter 387 _ Why do I think that guy is a devil fruit person? Luffy said with a smile. The three people's different answers made Ace immediately stunned. Anyone like that? The only guy who fuses the three powers of swordsmanship, taijutsu, and devil fruit. From the point of mastery alone, Ace can also perceive that this person is not simple. However, since Luffy and the others are safe, it means that the person is probably not malicious. Therefore, Ace was only slightly puzzled and put it down. He would never have dreamed that the guy Luffy and the three were talking about was his captain. Then what are you doing in Alabasta? This is the territory of Crocodile, one of the 7 seas. Ace smiled again. Ace, you know Crocodile too? Luffy asked suspiciously. Of course I know. Crocodile, one of the 7 martial seas, is a Sha fruit person. He is a natural type, and his strength is very good. Otherwise, the World Court will not choose him. Ace said with a smile, you better not be with him. Conflict, this guy, is not a good person. Nami's face was heavy, and even Ace had mentioned Crocodile, proving that the goal of their trip was indeed not a simple guy. Luffy, I didn't expect you to go out to sea so soon. Ace said with a sigh, I heard that you are now a guy with a bounty of 30 million, which is really good. Ha ha ha, Ace, how about you? How are you doing? I met you here, and I don't know what you are here for. Luffy said with a big laugh. Ace shook his head and said with a smile, I'm the captain of the 2nd Division of the Death God Pirates. As for coming here. His eyes became sharp. It's to hunt down a guy who was not dealt with because of mistakes in the last battle. The moment his face changed, a depressing aura spread throughout the restaurant, making everyone in the Straw Hat Pirates shudder in their hearts. Zoro and Sanji looked at each other. This Luffy's brother, it's not easy. Yes, the aura on him is terrifying. The two communicated with each other, but did not speak. But Nami stood aside and murmured, Ace, Death Pirates, this name is so familiar. Wei Wei thought for a while, then said in shock, isn't the Death God Pirates one of the 5 emperors of the new century? 5 emperors of death. Nami suddenly raised her head, looked at Ace, and then looked at the smiling and enthusiastic face up close. Her pupils contracted immediately. I remember this face. I have seen it. I must have seen it. Reward order. Reward order. Nami began to quickly flip through a stack of thick reward orders that she had taken from somewhere, and then, when her hand paused, and when she saw the face on it, she was completely shocked. Fire Fist Ace, captain of the 2nd Division of the Death God Pirates, with tens of thousands of elite pirates under his command, extremely dangerous, bounty, 500 million Baileys. Nami read it out loud, then stared at Ace. You are Fire Fist Ace. Ace was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, yes, my nickname is Fire Fist. There is a 500 million bounty. Nami said loudly. This sentence made the Straw Hat Pirates present quiet, and then looked at Ace's smiling face, and let each other's mouth become a little dry. They swallowed their saliva silently, not knowing what to say. 500 million. You know, their highest bounty in the pirates is Luffy, but it's only 30 million. Compared with 500 million noses, the difference is simply unknown. Oh, 500 million. It went up again. Ace touched his head and said with a smile, Navy, I just like to increase the bounty for others. But it's useless, haha. Luffy stared at Ace in amazement. Okay, that's amazing. Ace, you are amazing. Ha ha ha, Luffy, you have to work hard, otherwise, One Piece must be mine. Ace laughed loudly. When everyone knew Ace's identity, they all seemed a little cautious. The reward amount of 500 million represents absolute terrifying strength. Among the pirates they have heard of, Ace is the highest known bounty amount. Alabasta, it is said that the Sand Crocodile, one of the 7 seas, is only a mere 81 million Bailey. No, One Piece, it must be mine. Luffy shouted. 2 hours later, Ace and Luffy left. He heard the rumor of Blackbeard and left immediately. Before leaving, he left a piece of life paper for Luffy. I didn't expect that, Luffy, you have such a powerful brother. If he is willing to help, Crocodile will not be able to solve it easily. Usopp said admiringly, his face was full of little stars. Nami got out at this time and said with admiration in her eyes. The legendary Fire Fist Ace is a person with the ability to burn fruits in the natural system. He can release a high-temperature flame like the sun, burn everything, and can easily destroy the pirate group. He has the strength of a general. Similarly, he is also one of the highest combat powers of the Death God Pirates. Luffy just smirked, listening to his friends praising Ace. He was sincerely happy. Ace, that's amazing. Then, we can't fall behind. Let's go and find the crocodile, I'm going to shoot him away. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Ha 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 ha. A burst of laughter came out, and Luffy and the others began to divide their troops and then acted. In the dry desert, Yangqing and Taizu slowly landed. Roar! Taizu roared, and the huang sand fluttered in the sky, and Yangqing waved it to disperse it. This place, Benlong doesn't like it very much, it's too dry. Taizu said dissatisfiedly, leave here quickly. Ha ha. Yangqing smiled, shook his head, and said, I need something that I must know to grow into a pirate king. One Piece. You humans are really boring. It's just a meaningless title. Just like the Dragon King of our tribe, this dragon never bothers to fight for it. Otherwise, where would there be the existence value of those pseudo-dragons? Taizu said disdainfully, snorted. Okay, don't talk nonsense. I'm going to find someone who will make yourself smaller and stand on my shoulders. Your current goals are too big and inconvenient. This dragon is not small. Moreover, the smaller body does not conform to the identity of this dragon at all, Taizu resisted. Yangqing's eyes narrowed and he looked at Taizu. Chapter 388 The Courtyard. Come on, or I'll force you to be smaller. Seeing the fierce light flashing in Yangqing's eyes, Taizu let out a low cry in fear, then shrank down and lay on Yangqing's shoulder. The huge iron pillar soon turned into a little dragon about a foot long. It looked like a small snake to the eyes, and the grim face before, looked a little cute at this moment. His 5 claws stood on Yangqing's shoulders, and he looked around with a very angry expression. This state made him very uncomfortable, but there was nothing he could do. It can be expected that if he doesn't listen to what Yangqing said, he will inevitably suffer a disaster. Very good, I didn't expect you to be a little cute after getting smaller. Yangqing nodded with satisfaction. Taizu neighed in dissatisfaction, his face full of disdain. One person and one dragon slowly walked in this desert. As Yangqing walked, he recalled the important tricks in sword mastery in his mind. Every second, he was able to understand the tricks. In the desert, the wind and sand are all over the sky and the climate is dry. It is difficult for ordinary people to endure such weather, but Yangqing's power radiates and isolates all unfavorable conditions. 3 days later, they came to Albana, the city of Yan in Alabasta. This is a city full of exotic flavors. The houses are made of bricks and tiles, and the top of the circle is like a pyramid-like building. As he slowly moved forward, Taizu looked around, looking very curious. Although he is a real dragon, he rarely appears in front of others, and he spends most of his life sleeping. Therefore, this guy who has survived for a long time does not really understand some things about the pirate world. Baroque Studio. A smile appeared in Yangqing's eyes. Crocodile, it's been a long time. When he came to this city again, Yangqing naturally remembered the guy who had fought against him here and was almost killed by him. I don't know, what is that guy doing now? According to the original records, this dark and ambitious guy should have already controlled the kingdom of Alabasta, ready to interpret the historical text. Here, Robin, it seems, she is united with Crocodile. How bold, that fellow, not a good man. Yangqing shook his head, found a bar and walked in. This is a bar with soothing music, which is melodious and intoxicating. On the stage in the middle, a middle-aged man closed his eyes and played sakas, looking very comfortable. After ordering 2 glasses of red wine, Yangqing sat here and began to enjoy the silence. When the red wine was on the table, Taizu jumped off Yangqing's shoulder, and then circled around the red wine glass a few times. The wine in the glass was as red as blood, exuding a mellow and sweet smell. Human drink. Although Taizu was small, his voice was dull. Yes, I invite you, try it. Yangqing said with a smile. Taizuren stood up, put his head deep into the wine glass, and took a breath. The red wine spun into a red dragon shape, and then entered the mouth of Taizu. The taste is not bad. Taizu squinted his eyes and spit out this sentence after a while. Yangqing laughed loudly. You can't drink it like this, you have to taste it slowly to appreciate the beauty of it. Humph. Taizu spat in disdain. Just when one person and one dragon were enjoying the peace here leisurely, in another remote corner of the bar, 4 men gathered together. How are you getting ready? Everything is ready, we can start at any time, just wait for the boss's order. Continue to contact the other brothers, this time, we must win, and we must not make any mistakes. Understood. The voice was very small, and after a few short sentences, it became quiet. Yang Qing's eyes narrowed, and a clear expression appeared on his face. It seems that these people are Kosh's subordinates, the friend of Princess Wei Wei, and the leader of the rebel army. Alabasta is suffering because of the prolonged drought. However, most of the uninformed people thought that these phenomena were caused by the use of dancing powder by the king, thus forming a rebel army. However, these people do not know that everything is Crocodile's conspiracy. Luffy's gang, they should be almost there too. Yang Qing murmured. And, little Robin, where the hell are you? An hour later, Yang Qing and Taizu left here. He began to turn around in Yancheng. In Crocodile's plan, Albana was the top priority. Therefore, at this moment, Robin and the important personnel of the Baroque studio must have a great chance to be in this city. The domineering look of seeing and hearing was stretched to the limit by Yang Qing, and then slowly covered. 3 hours later, a smile appeared on his face. Sure enough, it's here. Yang Qing took Taizu to turn left and right from the complicated alley, and then came to a courtyard full of chrysanthemums. The courtyard is very secluded, backed by the mountains, and in front of the door are ordinary people's courtyards. But he did not expect that this person would live in such an environment. Under the tree in the yard, a woman with eyes crossed her legs, holding a book in her hand, reading it carefully. With a smile on Yang Qing's face, he gently walked into the courtyard. With long slender legs, a beautiful face, and an exquisite figure, there is no doubt that this woman is Robin. It's quite leisurely, your captain is here, but he doesn't have the slightest action. Yang Qing said with a light smile. Robin ignored him, but after carefully reading the page of the book, he just finished the book. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. The sign clips into it, closes it, and lifts it up. With a smile on his face, Robin didn't seem surprised at all. You're here. Just smiling 3 words, but Yang Qing shrugged helplessly and spread his hands. Isn't there any surprise? I'm here to act as a flower protector. I don't believe it. Robin shook his head. Yang Qing patted his forehead. So, smart women are the most annoying. So, my lord, what are you doing in this remote country? Robin asked with a smile. You are really calm. This country is about to go to war. Yang Qing said helplessly. Ha, it has nothing to do with me. Robin's face was full of indifferent expressions. How has your goal been achieved? Yang Qing asked directly. The last step has been reached. It seems that I can see it in the recent days. Referring to this, Robin's eyes were a little excited. Chapter 389 _ Waiting for so long, dancing with the wolf, you are fighting hard. Yang Qing laughed. Ha, this is a historical text, Captain. Robin smiled playfully. Aren't you curious? The legend has a blank history of 100 years. Blank 100 years. Hearing Robin say this, Yang Qing was startled, and then fell into deep thought. The biggest mystery in the world of One Piece, 100 years of the world. What happened in that blank history? According to legend, these historical truths are recorded in historical texts scattered all over the world, and they can be collected and combined to obtain the historical truth. And wanting to become One Piece and get the legendary big secret treasure seems to be vaguely related to this historical text. And Yang Qing's goal this time, in addition to those devil fruits, is the historical text. If you want to become One Piece, increase your background, and understand the world without a doubt, is a necessary condition. I'm very interested. I came to you for exactly this purpose. Yang Qing pondered, her voice becoming much more serious. Oh, Captain, you are actually interested in the historical text? Robin asked curiously. Of course, my target is One Piece. Yang Qing smiled. One Piece. A strange color appeared in Robin's eyes. Speaking of which, I saw an interesting boy before, and he talked about One Piece. He's your rival, Captain. Ha 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 ha. Yang Qing let out a series of laughter, and then the figure disappeared here. When you succeed, remember to inform me, Crocodile, he is also an interesting person. The sound penetrated Robin's ears, making the latter look strange. After leaving Robin's place, Yang Qing took Taizu to the auction house because he heard that there was a devil fruit here. It didn't take much effort, and at the price of 85 million Bailey, he took this devil fruit. Although the devil fruit is said to be priced at 100 million, but when its effect is not great, it is worthless. This value will shrink. Next, Yang Qing started to wait. Around Albana, the dark currents have begun to surge, and when the time is right, war will break out. In the dark room, smoke lingered, Crocodile's eyes were indifferent and expressionless. Is everything ready? Yes, the rebel army is ready to move, and a large number of unknown people have entered the city recently. It is expected that they will launch an attack in 3 days. Funny. Inform my partner lady that our plan is finally coming to an end. Understood. A not-so-big war is brewing, but it is equally thrilling. Soon, the time was pushed to 3 days later. On this day, all hidden forces began to act. Kosha, it's time to start. Okay, follow your orders. The leader of the rebel army was indifferent and gave orders in an orderly manner. They quickly shuttled through various lanes, but suddenly stopped when they passed a crossing. At this moment, Kosha was shrouded in a wide robe, looking at the blue-haired girl in the alley. His heart suddenly trembled. Wei, he murmured in a low voice. This leader, at this moment, is like going to call this childhood playmate, but he can't. Holding his hands tightly, and staring at the woman with his back turned to him for a while, Kosha pressed the hat on his head and turned to leave. Plan, get ready to start. And above a tower, Crocodile saw that the bomb in the huge pendulum had been hidden, and the corner of his mouth showed a cold smile. Everything is ready, then, it's time for us to get down to business. Half an hour later, a woman appeared beside Crocodile. The two stood side by side, thinking about walking deep into the palace. Everything went on as in the original. Luffy and others came here to fight the Baroque studio. At the beginning of the war, Wang Jun and the rebel army stood up, and the scene was chaotic. Yang Qing stood on the tower where Crocodile stayed before, with a smile on his face. Interesting, the power of this bomb is not bad. He found the bomb easily and said with a smile. The iron pillar on his shoulder snorted and snorted, as if he was a little disdainful. In a flash, Yang Qing disappeared here and landed on the chaotic ground. There were wars between the two armies everywhere, and both sides were red-eyed. The real scene is a little different from the anime. This is the real world of bloodshed and death. Shuttling between the people in the war, Yang Qing quickly disappeared here, and the direction he went was the depths of the palace. At the same time, Luffy also rushed towards Crocodile. The two are fighting, no different from the anime. Luffy went through quite a tragic battle, but finally defeated Crocodile. This result surprised Robin, but at the same time he was relieved. This kid does have extraordinary power. Looking at the blue sky vaguely, Crocodile was a little confused. At this moment, he was lying on the ground, thinking of the young man who also defeated him many years ago. Today, he has once again lost to a junior. Could it be that over the years, he has really made no progress at all? This fact, Jean Crocidal. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Some were stunned, some were frustrated, and also very confused. What? Doubt, confused. At this moment, a clear voice came over, with a smile. Crocodile struggled to open his eyes and looked at the person who came. Because this voice reminded him of the person deep down in his heart, the guy who made him experience bleak. Lucifer. Gritting his teeth, Crocodile growled. He still looks very energetic. Yang Qing chuckled. Wait a while, the sea soldiers will come here and arrest you. And after being caught by the Navy, do you want to know what will happen to you and what will happen to you? This question made Crocodile startled, and he began to imagine, but the scene in his mind was not very good, so the already ugly face became even more ugly. He didn't have to imagine, Yang Qing helped him to say it. All the things you have done over the years will be revealed by the sea soldiers, you will be deprived of Wu Hai's identity, and then you will enter the advanced city, and finally the rest of your life will be spent in endless darkness. Chapter 390 _ Are you happy, Crocodile, the result of your life? Yang Qing smiled, but the meaning of his words made Crocodile shudder. If so, he might as well die. However, he is now completely powerless, but he can't even do self-destruction. Where did that kid get his power? Until now, Crocodile still doesn't understand. Damn it! Crocodile roared with a grim expression on his face. Are you here to see my joke? Kill me if you have the ability. Want to die? Yang Qing raised his eyebrows and laughed. How can it be that easy? Your end is undoubtedly tragic. Listen, the Marines have come here. Damn it! What the hell are you doing here? Crocodile said bitterly, to mock me with a proud and strong attitude. 5 dignified emperors, it's just this kind of bearing. Ha 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 ha. Yang Qing laughed. He stepped over Crocodile's body, and then walked towards the dark stone. This is the legendary historical text, which records the blank 100 years of history, and even traces of ancient weapons. What's written on it? You know what? Only Nicole Robin knows. Didn't your crew tell you? That shady woman probably won't trust you unreservedly. Crocodile's voice made Yang Qing's face gloomy. He remembered what Robin had concealed from him during that trip to the Sky Island. But in the blink of an eye, he laughed again. You hate Robin. It's funny, and it makes me so happy to see you so irritated. How Robin is, only I am qualified to judge. I believe her, and there is a reason why she doesn't tell me. As for you. Yang Qing's face turned gloomy, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. You only have one choice now, surrender to me. Otherwise, wait for you to be arrested by the Navy and enter the advanced city. Crocodile's face changed, and then he laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, surrender to you. Submit to you. You actually have this purpose. Are you not afraid that one day, I will bite you in turn and bite off your head? Then you have to have this ability. Yang Qing said expressionlessly, with a strong confidence in his words. Ha ha ha, good. One of the 5 emperors came here for me. Interesting, interesting. If you are so sincere, I will surrender to you, so what? Crocodile laughed and surrendered to Yang Qing without much resistance in his heart. It is only right and proper for the weak to surrender to the strong. And, as the person in front of him said, for now, only by surrendering to him can he save his life. Otherwise, when you enter the advanced city, you can imagine what your fate will be. Ha 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 ha. He laughed wildly, and then watched Yang Qing lift his body and put it on his shoulders. At this moment, Crocodile's eyes flashed. He didn't even think that he would be saved by this guy. My life-saving grace will be repaid sooner or later. However, I will never forget the hatred of the sword at the beginning. The deep words made Yang Qing's footsteps stop, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. If you can cut me and hurt me, just come. Crocodile shuddered, his eyes tightly closed. The trembling eyelashes showed the restlessness in his heart at the moment. Yang Qing's bearing made him involuntarily convinced. No wonder, he will become one of the 5 emperors. Standing on the top, the peak of the pirates. Finally, after taking a deep look, Yang Qing turned around and left the dark historical text. If you want to know what's on it, you'd better ask your crew, Nico Robin, she must know. Crocodile said. Yang Qing stepped forward and saw a large number of sea soldiers in front of him. He turned around and entered another hidden alley, and then kept jumping up and down. After a few breaths, he had disappeared in front of the sea soldiers. Lord Smoky, Crocodile has been rescued. After a large number of Marines came here, they did not find Crocodile and reported it immediately. Have you been rescued? Smog's face was solemn, and he was puzzled. As far as he knew, the Baroque studio had been wiped out. So, who rescued the crocodile? Historical texts. Yang Qing laughed when he heard Crocodile's suggestion. Your suggestion is very good, but, isn't it easier for Robin to collect them all, and then tell me after they've figured it out? I planned to come forward when you discovered the historical text, but unfortunately, it was late. I didn't expect that after so many years, you are still so weak, which really disappoints me. Crocodile's face was ashen, and the two had left Albana at this moment. In a remote desert, Crocodile was thrown aside, and Yang Qing was pouring water into his mouth. Although I surrender to you, it does not mean that I will tolerate your humiliation to me. Only the weak are humiliated. Yang Qing said with an expressionless face. If you don't feel like being humiliated, then work hard to become stronger. Get stronger. Crocodile's pupils shrank. He slowly supported the desert. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Standing up, his eyes were a little confused. I also want to become stronger. After the battle with you, I worked hard to break through my limits and finally reached my strength today. If that Straw Hat Boy hadn't mastered my weakness, I would he'd been cleaned up long ago. However, my strength is not enough. I don't know how to get stronger. I've reached my limit. Speaking of which, Crocodile was a little frustrated. No, you haven't reached your limit yet. You just need an environment to get stronger. Go to the New World, go to Dylan's and the others. Let them teach you how to get stronger. Yang Qing turned his head and said with a smile. Crocodile, I don't hate bad guys, especially a principled and dreamy bad guy like you. I'll give you a chance to become stronger. Look at your spirit. Whether you can be strong to that level, and whether you can take action against me. Crocodile clenched his fists tightly, his pupils widened, staring at Yang Qing, unable to speak for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth. Okay, I'll go to the New World. A week later, you will set off with the Reaper intelligence team. Chapter 391 People's Dream. Crocodile's eyes flashed, but in the end he didn't say anything. The other party wants to help himself. Although he does not understand the reason, it is a good thing and there is no reason to refuse. 7 days later, Crocodile had recovered most of his strength. He shrouded himself in a large black robe, and did not reveal his true face, sitting alone at the port of Alabasta. Waiting for the arrival of the Death God Pirates intelligence team here, the Navy patrols around, it seems very strict. While searching for the people in the Baroque studio, Sand Crocodile's failure completely exposed his conspiracy, and the whole person has fallen into a situation where the rat is crossing the street and everyone is shouting and beating. From morning to noon, Crocodile's face was a little gloomy. And until this time, an 8-person boat sailed to Crocodile belatedly. Hey, you, the person on the boat shouted. It was a middle-aged man with a Chinese character face, thick long hair and a shawl. His face was arrogant and rebellious. Huh, Crocodile responded gloomily. Get on the boat, we're off. The middle-aged man said. Crocodile nodded and stepped onto the ship. You're the Sand Crocodile, the guy with a bounty of 81 million. As soon as they got on the boat, a young man asked with a smile. HMPH. With a cold snort, Crocodile didn't answer. He took off his robes, revealing a hideous face. Yo, the momentum is not bad, he looks like a vicious guy. The young man laughed, and then his face became silent. But do you know that anyone on this ship has more bounty than you? Gao, their reputation in the New World is beyond your imagination. Quote. Crocodile's face trembled and he was surprised. Just like me, the villain Scarter, the bounty is 160 million, twice as much as yours. And Uncle Bit, his bounty is 360 million. The middle-aged man who started to greet Crocodile touched his head and laughed. On this ship, it's better to be humble. Chihuahai, hee, in the eyes of our Death God crew, it's not as powerful as the smallest squad leader. Scarter said disdainfully. Crocodile's face sank, very ugly, and grains of sand began to float out of his body. Is it natural? Scarter sneered. A dark, armed arrogance appeared on his right arm. It's ridiculous, you only dare to stay in the first half of the half, and you dare to show hostility to me. Guys, I'm going to teach this guy a lesson, what do you think? Scarter turned his head and said to the others. The 7 people all shook their heads with smiles on their faces, and they didn't mind. The next moment, the sand swept the whole ship, but in an instant, Scarter disappeared. Bang! The dull voice came out, the sand dissipated, and Crocodile's entire body was bent, becoming like a shrimp, and the swill was spit out, and his face paled instantly. A guy who can't even use domineering, so what if you have a natural system? Weak and scum-like existence. The development of the nature department is also so weak, which really disappoints me. Scarter's merciless ridicule made Crocodile's face even more ugly, but there was nothing he could do. Being close at hand, the man shattered his elementalization with one punch, making him a little dazed at the moment. Let's go, we can just send him to the next stop, we don't have to worry about the rest. The middle-aged Humpty shook his head with a smile. The ship fell silent and started sailing towards the next island. Just when Crocodile joined the Death God pirates, he was shocked and stimulated at the same moment. Sitting on the boat, with Ace in his arms, the phone worm on his waist rang. Hey, talk, Ace said loudly after taking it. Captain, we found Blackbeard's trail. What? Where? You didn't lie to me this time. Ace said loudly. I didn't lie to you last time, but you were late. Don't talk nonsense, tell me where he is. Ace yelled. It's on Gaia Island, not far from you, but he's not alone, he still has a gang, you must be careful. Got it. Ace was about to hang up immediately. By the way, your brother is there too, the Straw Hat Boy. Okay. Ace hung up with a sharp look on his face. With a pop above his legs, a flame burst into flames, and the next moment, he rose into the sky and turned into a scorching flame. Blackbeard, I finally caught you. This time, I will never forgive you. A cold voice came out of Ace's mouth, making this cheerful guy seem a little cruel at this moment. An hour later, Ace landed on Gaia Island. In the ancient town, Luffy walked out of the bar with a gloomy face, his head was full of drinks and scars. These traces were injured by Bellamy. Like the original, Luffy did not fight back. When he walked to the street, he saw a tall and strong man with an ugly face, holding a wine bottle in his hand, pouring it into his mouth, and then sat down cross-legged. Empty island, it exists. This sentence made Nami suddenly look up, covering her mouth in Pakistan, and the rest of the Straw Hat Pirates looked at him with wide eyes. The battle just now was won by both of them. Your scolding voice is also very imposing. You are really a courageous woman. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Man. These 2 words, the big man said to Nami. Then, he looked at Luffy and the others. The new era those guys are talking about are all farts, saying that the era of pirates dreaming has ended, and people's dreams will never end. The new era, those old guys, will never admit any words that slander dreams. Boy, it's hard to be patient with others, isn't it? At this time, there was a burst of laughter from the bar, causing Luffy and the others to look sideways. Let them laugh, as long as you want to be the top person, you will encounter times when you can't find a reason to punch. The words of the big man made Luffy and others stunned, and then they relaxed. They took a deep look at the guy in front of them and then left. Blackbeard sat cross-legged on the ground, watching Luffy and the others disappear here, with a cruel smile in his eyes. He, a newcomer with a bounty of 100 million. It should be very good to use him to surrender to the sea soldiers. That's a good goal. Monkey D. Luffy, see you in the future. Chapter 392 The Duel of Destiny. After Luffy and the others all left, figures appeared behind Blackbeard. How about it, Captain, who's our target next? Lafitte held a slender cane, his voice was shrill, his toes pointed, and he walked like a dance. Ha ha, the goal is already there. Get ready, we will act soon. Blackbeard laughed loudly. Is that the Straw Hat Boy just now? Monkey and Luffy, with a bounty of 100 million Baileys. Poison Q said lifelessly, tossing the apples in his hands. That's right, it's him. He sent someone to keep an eye on them. It's not easy to do something on this island. When they leave, we'll take action. Blackbeard said with a smile. Understood. Then, Blackbeard and his party left here. And after the group left, a black-haired young man with a cowboy hat also appeared here, his eyes full of gloom. As the target Luffy and the others. You want to hurt my brother, Tiki, it seems that I am absolutely and will never spare you. His figure quickly disappeared, and he also left here. About a day later, Luffy kicked Bellamy away as in the original book, and then started to leave Gaia Island, while the Blackbeard's group also picked up weapons and prepared to set off. The brothers set off, and our goal has begun to act. Blackbeard had a cruel smile on his face, smiling happily. The boat was moored on the shore, and the group of Blackbeard set off and walked towards the boat. At this moment, a young figure appeared in front of them. Blackbeard's pupils shrank violently, and he stretched out his hand to stop his companions, preventing them from moving on. Tiki, I finally found you. Ace's face was gloomy, his voice was as cold as coming from an ice cave, and the killing intent in his eyes was undisguised. Ace, there is no hatred between us. Blackbeard was a little nervous, and the sweat on his forehead began to seep. He had experienced the strength of Fire Fist Ace. At that time, he couldn't even take 3 moves. As long as he was 1 second later, he would surely die. Unexpectedly, on Gaia Island, he could meet this guy, which made Blackbeard's heart immediately rise. Captain, this guy is blocking our way. What is he trying to do? Van Oka said indifferently. The rifle in his hand was already aimed at Ace. Don't shoot, Blackbeard shouted nervously, and then he looked at Ace, squeezed a smile and said, Ace, get out of the way, we have important things to do now. Things that can really affect the overall situation in the world. Right. Blackbeard's eyes suddenly lit up, and he shouted at Ace, Ace, do you want to join us? Join us as we make something of a sensation in the world. Important thing. Do you want to go after the Straw Hat Boy? Ace stepped forward with the killing intent in his eyes. Yes, as long as we catch him and hand it over to the World Court, we can go one step further. Just like Death's original development path, we enter the World Court, and then secretly accumulate strength, and one day, we will definitely become a new one. The 5 Emperors. Blackbeard shouted frantically, staring at Ace with anticipation in his eyes. The Luffy you mentioned as my brother, Blackbeard, you really made me unable to hide the killing intent towards you. Ace's face was full of killing intent. I want to kill now. You. What? Blackbeard said with surprise in his eyes. His voice was out of tune. I didn't do it on purpose. Let's change the target. Ace, join us. Poof. Ace's face was stern, flames burned on his body, and the high temperature surged out. His voice was like a demon, freezing everything. No, I choose to kill you, right here. I have no interest in being a partner with a guy who kills his own. After the words were finished, Ace's right hand slammed out, and a loud roar was heard. Fist-shaped flames rushed out. Fire Fist. Blackbeard's face changed greatly, seeing the huge fire fist with a full 10 meters in front of him. The Blackbeard pirates were startled and rushed towards all directions. Bang! The sound of the explosion came out, and the place where Blackbeard and the others stood just now turned into a mass of charred black. Seeing this scene, the faces of Blackbeard's group all turned blue. This guy is so scary. Everyone had a nervous look on their faces, especially Blackbeard, who was sweating profusely. Ace's strength, he knows very well. This is the 2nd division of the Death God Pirates, and it is still a nature department. I am afraid that in terms of strength, it is enough to fight against the general. Come on, prepare for cover, run away, we're no match for this guy. Blackbeard yelled. Want to run? Ace looked indifferent, his hands in a pistol position. Bang bang bang. The sound of a series of boats came out, and the flames were fired like bullets, scaring Blackbeard's group to jump around. Van Oka stared at Ace indifferently, and suddenly pulled the trigger on the rifle in his hand. Bang! The bullet shot out, but the next moment, his face changed. A spark appeared on Ace's forehead. The bullet rushed into the center of Ace's forehead, but it was directly burned and dissolved into liquid and body. This scene made Van Oka scolded the perverted and perverted in his heart. He is a natural ability person, all material attacks are useless to him. Blackbeard shouted. His eyes were cold, Ace stretched out his right index finger, and after a breath, it was huge. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. The flame group appeared. Then he spoke indifferently and threw the fireball at Van Oka. Bang! There was a louder explosion than before, and Van Oka was directly blown out. His clothes were on fire, he was seriously injured in an instant, and his consciousness became blurred. A Blackbeard crew member next to him ran over immediately, put out Van Oka's flames, quickly carried him on his back, and ran towards the distance. Blackbeard, you can't run. Ace strode forward, his voice like the language of death. Hee, Ace, there is no need for this between us. Blackbeard was extremely nervous. It's useless to say anything, just die. Ace looked indifferent, and the flame in his hand ignited again. The distance between the two was getting closer and closer, and the other Blackbeard crew members looked at Ace with some fear. At this time, no one rushed up. Suddenly, Blackbeard's eyes flashed a hint of wickedness, and his hands suddenly stuck out. Dark water. A swirling darkness formed immediately, aimed at Ace. Suddenly, Ace's eyes changed. Chapter 393 Escape. At the moment when the black vortex appeared, Ace felt that his whole body was out of control. What shocked him most was that the flames burning around him went out immediately. This means that his devil fruit ability is invalid. Ha, do you see it, Ace, my power? Anyone with the power of devil fruit that I touch will lose their effect. Blackbeard's laughter came out. The power of attraction made Ace fly towards where Blackbeard was. This force seems to contain gravity, which is very scary. Is this what you rely on? Ace's eyes were indifferent. I will let you know the gap between us. As the distance between the two continued to approach, Ace's right arm showed a dark and domineering armament. Armed. Blackbeard's face changed drastically, and he hurriedly recovered his abilities, but it was too late. With that suction, Ace's speed was incredible. Bang! This punch slammed into Blackbeard's stomach, knocking the latter out in an instant. Ow! The intense pain swept through Blackbeard's soul, making him unable to help shouting out, and layers of sweat poured out of his forehead. However, the figure that followed Ace was already coming towards him. Blackbeard's face was ugly, he endured the pain and shouted towards the back. Go away, I'll hold him back and meet up later. None of you can leave. Ace slammed his fists together, and a thunderous dragon roar came out, and a huge dragon shadow began to emerge behind him. Roar of the fire dragon. Roar. The hot flame wind erupted. This is the breath of the dragon, and it swept away towards the members of the Blackbeard pirates ahead. In just an instant, a large flame curtain covered several people. After 3 breaths, the flames passed, and the members of the Blackbeard pirates burned with flames. Their faces were painful, they kept screaming, and ran towards the distance. Humph! With a cold snort, Ace turned his gaze to Blackbeard. This guy was screaming in pain at the moment, but under him, a dark substance began to spread out, and in an instant, it quickly expanded and devoured everything. Dark cave. In a short period of 3 breaths, this darkness devoured everything that happened on the way. Ace watched this scene, his pupils kept shrinking. This strange scene really surprised him. What kind of power is this? The ability of those who can force the ability fails, and it can also spread the darkness and devour all matter. He kept jumping and undulating, running on the ground, dodging the darkness. After a full breath, the range of darkness spread has reached a radius of 1 kilometer. At this time, Blackbeard bent down and panted violently, looking very tired. Looking at Ace standing on the edge of darkness, Blackbeard laughed. Ha ha, ha 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 ha, Ace, let you see my new abilities. Afterwards, Blackbeard's expression turned fierce, and he roared up to the sky. Liberation. Ace's face changed and he looked into the sky. Everything that was swallowed up within a kilometer just now was released from the top of his head at this moment. In the sky, it was as if a dark mouth suddenly appeared, and then spit everything out. Flame ring, Great Flame Emperor. Boom. The flames soared into the sky, rushing towards the things that fell overhead. But at this moment, a black vortex appeared in Blackbeard's hand. Dark water. Ace was stagnant, the flame went out, and his body lost control. Damn. Glancing fiercely at Blackbeard, Ace looked up at the sky, but the next moment, countless trees, flowers, and dust all fell, drowning him in an instant. Hoo 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 hoo. Blackbeard bent over and panted, his eyes still full of pain. The ability of this dark fruit is indeed powerful, but the pain it encounters is dozens of times that of others. Boom. Suddenly, the hill that was piled up by the material released just now moved. Blackbeard's face changed, and panic appeared in his eyes. Go. If you don't go, it's over. Dragging his tired body, Blackbeard quickly left here. He had reached his limit, and looking at the violent movement in the hill, Ace clearly suffered little damage. If you wait for him to come out, you can imagine what he will encounter. A minute later, the flames soaring into the sky erupted and swept across a kilometer radius. Ace looked indifferent and stepped out. Standing in the blazing flames, Ace glanced around, but Blackbeard and the others had disappeared. Damn. He cursed fiercely, disappeared in a flash, and continued to look for the trace of Blackbeard. Ace's confrontation with Blackbeard was short-lived, but this time it was very different from the original. Ace, who became stronger, swept Blackbeard's gang with overwhelming force. His imperial aura in the flames and his indifferent eyes left a deep impression on Blackbeard's group. It's terrible, Fire Fist Ace. Is this Fire Fist Ace? The guy with a bounty of 500 million is really scary. Almost, just a little bit, and I'm dead. If that guy didn't focus on the captain, I'm afraid we'd already be dead. Blackbeard gang sitting. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. On the wooden boat, he endured the pain and said loudly. Blackbeard was lying on the deck, gasping for breath. He was so tired that he was dying. Fighting against a character of Ace's level, Blackbeard is under enormous pressure all the time. The shadows of the past, and the overwhelming power of the opponent, made Blackbeard tired to the point of avalanche. Come on, don't be caught up by him again. Blackbeard said quickly, that guy is the captain of the 2nd Division of the Death God, thankfully he is the only one. Captain, you are really amazing, you are actually being hunted down by such a character. You can still live to this day. Blackbeard gave a wry smile. He didn't just stop Ace from chasing him. If the expectations were good, the members of the Whitebeard Pirates should also arrive. It seems that recently, it must be hidden and wait for the wind to pass. As Blackbeard expected, a few steps after Ace walked, a boat came to the coast, and a strong guy jumped off from above. Is it you? Did Whitebeard send you here? Ace asked coldly with a look in his eyes. It was this guy. In that battle, if it wasn't for this guy, Blackbeard would have been killed by himself long ago, so why would he need such trouble now? Ace, it looks like you just fought him. The visitor frowned and asked. Chapter 394 Two Birds with One Stone. Joe's. Ace called out the person's name, and his expression was not very friendly. I didn't come to fight you. Yoja saw Ace's face and waved his hand. Tell me about Blackbeard. This man is sinister and vicious, and should not be underestimated. Ace stepped over Jaz's side and ignored Jaz's words. Soon, his figure disappeared here, leaving only Joe's, staring at the former blankly. This kid. Joe's gritted his teeth. I can find that guy without you. A week later, the injuries of the Blackbeard pirates have begun to recover, and everyone is sitting on the boat. What shall we do next? The trace of Ace has been found a few days ago, and it is very close to us. Damn, there are 7 or 8 islands in a row, and he hasn't gotten rid of him yet. Blackbeard sat cross-legged on the deck and poured the drink into his mouth. Listening to the words of his companions, he pondered for a moment, and then opened his mouth with a grin. Lafitte, you go to the naval headquarters and say, we will give him a great gift, and then we will get the location of Chihuahua. Lafitte was stunned for a moment, turned a few times on the spot, and said with a smile, understood, Captain. Everyone else looked at Blackbeard, and after thinking about it carefully, they all understood. Everyone knows that Blackbeard is ready to use strength. Ace's power, with their current strength, is absolutely unmatched. However, if the Huchung army is added, it will not be necessary. And if they unite with the naval forces, they will not only be able to get rid of the big troubles in their hearts, but also step into the eyes of the world's imperial court, and become the Chihuahua just around the corner. This is a two-pronged strategy, and it works very well. Time is passing by quietly, one day, in the naval headquarters. The warring states were seated in the first place, with a gloomy face. There were only a few lieutenant generals left in the empty conference room. Will they come this time? Who knows? A lieutenant general chatted secretly in private. Chihuahua has a special status, and he ignores the call of the World Court and the call of the naval headquarters. In the past several times, the call for orders was issued, but very few people came. These people are all about their mood. After another 3 minutes, Sengoku was still expressionless. At this moment, a figure appeared in the field. His sharp eyes were like eagles, and he was carrying a dark long knife behind his back. Seeing the person coming, a surprise appeared in the eyes of warring states, and the lieutenant general behind him shrank his pupils, full of inconceivable. Hawkeye, Mahawk, he, this time, came. What a surprise, I didn't expect you to come. Warring States was a little surprised. Just the way, Mahawk said indifferently, sitting on the chair with Erlang's legs crossed. Immediately following, a tall figure also appeared at the door, holding a thick book in his hand, his face blank. Bartholomew Bear, he's here too. Bear stepped in, then sat down without saying a word. Warring States glanced at him, then withdrew his gaze. Finally, a man in a feather coat came here. His face was grim, and his whole body exuded a gloomy aura, which made the sea soldiers guarding the door sweat profusely, trembling constantly. Brother Doflamingo, Warring States frowned slightly, but didn't say anything. Brother Doflamingo's face is still the same as before, but this time, his momentum is completely different. He has become cold, but he is taciturn, and there is no exaggeration and arrogance like before. The 3 members of Chihuahua are here. After waiting another quarter of an hour, the Warring States signaled the seamen at the door to close the door. But suddenly, a figure squeezed in. Hey, everyone, I take the liberty to visit. First of all, let me apologize. The yin and yang strange voice suddenly attracted the attention of everyone present. Warring States frowned and looked at the person who came, seeing that he was wearing a black top hat, a suit, his face was as pale as a vampire, and his behavior was weird, so he asked. Who are you? Let me introduce myself. Under the Blackbeard Pirate's navigator, Lafitte. Blackbeard. Sengoku's expression turned cold. It's bold enough to find you here as a pirate. Did it come from you? No, I'm here on behalf of the captain just to complete a deal with the Navy. Lafitte waved his hand. Deal. Warring States glanced around in front of him, and when he saw that the 3 Chihuahua had nothing to say, he asked, what deal? We send a message, and then our captain needs the location of Shichibukai. As far as I know, the purpose of this meeting of the Marines seems to be to determine the ownership of Chihuahua, right? Well, our captain is competent. Lafitte said with a smile. Chihuahua. Warring States laughed out loud, What qualifications do you have to serve as Chiwahai? Reputation, strength, or something else? As for trading this position, I don't think you have any leverage. No, what if I came here to tell the sailors about the One Piece's leftover? Lafitte smiled mysteriously and put out a depth charge. What? Sure enough, as soon as this sentence was said, everyone including the Warring States period shrank their hearts and their eyes were full of interest. One Piece still has a son. No one really knows about this. Especially war. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. The country, he had suspected, and the Navy had also sent people to investigate, but they gave up when they didn't get anything. Unexpectedly, at this moment, it was brought up again. Do you know where One Piece's bloodline is? Warring States asked in a condensed voice. Of course, I still know who he is. Lafayette smiled. How about, as long as this transaction is completed and we join forces, the captain will definitely hand over that sinful bloodline to the sailors. Sengoku fell into contemplation, and after careful consideration, he nodded, his eyes majestic. Yes, if you can hand the blood of the Pirate King into the hands of the sea soldiers, the position of Chiwahai will be Blackbeard's. Ha, the Navy will definitely be happy for this wise decision. Lafitte said with a smile, but, because that person has a special status and is relatively powerful, we need the support of the Navy General. What? Sengoku narrowed his pupils and looked at Lafitte. What do you mean? It just means that we need the Navy to join forces with us to capture that guy. Lafitte said. Who is that person? Warring States asked in a deep voice. Fire Fist, Ace. Chapter 395 The Warring States squinted, and the Lieutenant General behind him had a look of shock in his eyes. Unexpected, totally unexpected results. Hawk-eyed Mihawk narrowed his sharp eyes into a slit. Bartholomew Shang's expression was still calm and indifferent, but the eyes under Doflamingo's glasses were more excited. The captain of the 2nd Division of the Death Pirates, Fire Fist, Portgas and Ace. Sengoku murmured, is he the son of Roger? That's right, we need the support of a general of the Navy, and then, in a short period of time, we can hand him over to the Navy. How about it? This is a very good deal. Raphael Tay said with a smile. The Warring States period pondered for a moment, he was thinking about the gains and losses. The identity of Fire Fist Ace really surprised him, and he also hoped in his heart to arrest him and execute the son of the Pirate King. The blow to the pirate power can be imagined. But at the same time, the terrifying group of the Death God Pirates is also a big trouble. The man who has the most hope of ascending to the King of Thieves in Shanghai City, the most powerful man, the man who stands at the top of the world, countless titles and honors hang above that man's head, and anyone who faces his identity will feel a little dazed and fearful. The same goes for the sailors, they need to think about the consequences of this. The consequences, whether they can bear it. For about 2 minutes, the conference room fell silent. After that, Sengoku took a deep look at Lafitte. Yes, the Navy dispatches a general, and you immediately find out where he is. Lafitte smiled and said, trust me, you will be glad for your choice. Then, he turned to leave here. Facing the remaining 3 members of Shichibukai, Sengoku looked serious. Calling everyone here is to inform you of one thing. The position of Chiwahai is a crucial position for naval soldiers in the world's imperial court. Everyone has a great right of convenience, but at the same time, I hope you don't overdo it, otherwise, we have the right to take back this position at any time. Crocodile is a wicked man who has harmed a country. Now he has been removed from the position of Chiwahai. I hope you will take this as a warning. The 3 members of the Chiwahai present here were all expressionless. Shichibukai is a pirate gang that has been recognized by the World Court and has the right to plunder. Generally speaking, as long as they do not go too far and are not noticed by the majority of the world, there will be no danger. But once the strength is not enough, or is defeated, it will immediately be removed from this position, or directly obliterated. This is a sea soldier, a position under the compromise between the World Court and the pirates. About Ace. Brother Doflamingo had a weird smile on his face, his voice hoarse and cold. I can help. Warring States glanced at Brother Doflamingo and said, no need. Ha ha. Brother Doflaming laughed and said nothing. In this regard, the Chihuahai conference adjourned. The 3 Wuhai members walked out of the naval headquarters with indifferent expressions and boarded their own ships. Brother Doflamingo stood on the bow, looking at the naval headquarters that was getting farther and farther. A cold smile appeared on his face. Ace, hee hee, interesting. The undercurrent is surging, the fuse has been ignited, and then, the world is waiting for the explosion. Ha ha, who will guide the future of the world? I am really looking forward to it. On an unnamed island in the first half of the Great Route, Yongqing stepped into it with a smile on his face. I heard that there is a devil fruit here. Hee hee, I'm really lucky. This is the 4th one I have obtained, since that time. Yongqing is still very happy in his heart. Although the secrets are dazzling and it is difficult to choose which one to exchange, he still enjoys the feeling of constantly accumulating wealth. But he didn't know anything about what happened in the naval headquarters. The world's runaway, accidental point, even he can't predict it. At the same time, on the empty island, Luffy and his party have come here, and at the same time they have also heard the legend about the gods. Time continued to pass, and soon, just like the original, Luffy and others entered the place of God's trial. And Robin followed Luffy and the others. Walking to the ruins, Robin came to the historical text again, and after reading it carefully, he was filled with emotion. In combination with the historical texts of Alabasta, something new emerges. But the truth of history, I'm afraid, can only be figured out if all the texts are really connected together. Robin frowned and thought, feeling the road was difficult. However, no matter how difficult it is, she has to complete it. This is her dream. Just as she stepped forward, a blue lightning flashed and appeared behind Robin. What are you doing here with me? Analu asked aloud with an indifferent expression. The god in their mouth is you. Robin turned around and said sarcastically. Before Lucifer met me, I was the god here. Analu replied. So, as soon as I entered the empty island, you found me? Robin asked. The range of my heart can be detected even under the Qinghai Sea. Amy said, in addition to you, I also saw Ace fighting a group of pirates, and the guy from the Whitebeard Pirates. Quote. Ace, Robin exclaimed, he's down there. It's gone now, Annie said, then he turned his head to Luffy and the others. What are these people doing? This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. It's just an interesting group of people, Robin said. Don't let them disturb me, otherwise, I won't be polite. Analu said indifferently. Robin spread his hands and did not respond to Enel's words. When you're done, go back as soon as possible, otherwise, Lucifer, you should worry about you. Analu said this lightly at the end, and disappeared here in the form of lightning. Seeing the empty space in front of him, a smile appeared in Robin's eyes. I've had enough, I'll go back naturally. The plot progressed smoothly according to the original work, and then Analu finally appeared in front of Luffy's gang. Mortals don't understand the power of God. The thunder light, the dazzling thunder light, the thunder light that was even more terrifying than the original, instantly killed Zoro and Sanji. Only Robin stood there with a helpless face. I said, can't you be gentle? They're fine, they're just dizzy. Chapter 396 _ Analu's face was indifferent and his voice was very light. Robin shook his head and walked over to check on the two of them. Sure enough, as Analu said, they just fainted. The other people in the field, the warriors of Shandia, were all knocked down by Analu alone, and all fell to the ground. Analu, who has been baptized by countless wars, is no longer him in the original book, and his strength is already very terrifying. He is a strong man who really has the strength to fight against the generals. His two colors are domineering, his excellent physical skills, and his old-fashioned experience have created the current Thor Analu. Even the Navy, and even the Imperial Court of the World, can't take this veteran Death Pirate's 2nd Division captain lightly. Afterwards, Anilu disappeared and came to his ark. On the empty island, he trained a group of air forces. With the help of Esbagu, the capital of 7 waters, this Noah's Ark has long since become perfect. It is a huge ark that belongs to Anilu alone. At this moment, he was standing on the ark, followed by the shivering Nami. Humans always think that they can fight against gods. There is no doubt that this is a stupid idea. Anilu's voice was indifferent, and he truly possessed the majesty of gods. His eyes are penetrating, and he has the power of thunder, which is powerful and terrifying. I don't know where you come from, but there is no doubt that that small power has disturbed my peaceful life. Click. Biting off the apple in his hand, Enel looked at Nami. And the mortals who disturb the life of the gods don't seem to end well. Nami was completely terrified, and she hurriedly explained. We didn't do it on purpose, we just broke in by accident. This is my territory, so it's up to me to decide who should live and who should die. Anilu's voice was cold, and she threw an apple into Nami's arms. You're a wise woman, and I won't kill you. Nami breathed a sigh of relief, but at the next moment, Anilu's eyes looked down. There, 2 figures were running fast, and Luffy was the one at the head. Before the person arrived, his voice came from a distance. Nami, I'm here to save you. A cold light flashed in Anilu's eyes. He stared at Luffy below, and sneered, Look, there are always people who are ignorant, aren't they? Having experienced so many incidents of the Death God pirates, Anilu has already matured and become stronger. Seeing Luffy running quickly, he didn't take the shot first, but just stood on the boat and looked at the kid calmly. 30 seconds later, Luffy landed heavily on the deck, face to face with Enel. Let go of Nami, otherwise, I'll blow you away. Oh, come on, I can't ask for it. Anilu laughed. There are people in this world who can beat me, but it will never include you. Luffy roared and rushed over. Discharge. 30 million volts. The blue thunder light rushed out, released from Anilu's fingertips, and instantly expanded to 3 meters high, covering a large area. In an instant, Luffy was completely submerged. Luffy, Nami even cried. She knew the power of thunder and lightning very well. Almost anyone could be killed in one move. The lightning dissipated, revealing Luffy unharmed. This scene shocked Anilu in his heart. Immune to lightning. Who the hell are you guy? Anilu shouted loudly. I'm the rubber man who ate the rubber fruit. Luffy said loudly. Rubber is insulating. Nami understood at this time and shouted loudly, Luffy, come on. Ha, I will definitely knock him out. Luffy said confidently. However, after 3 breaths, the tragic fact completely collapsed the two of them. Anilu turned into a thunderbolt, and the speed was unbelievable. He had lost his patience, and fighting the weak fellow was boring him. Seeing the color, he avoided Luffy's attack easily and casually, and then his eyes narrowed. Armed color. The dark armament color wrapped his arms domineeringly, combined with his sophisticated physical skills. Almost instantly, in the close combat, Luffy was crushed to death. 10 breaths later, Anilu punched Luffy in the face, causing the latter to scream and fly out, hitting the golden wall heavily. It hurts, Luffy exclaimed in pain. Anilu walked forward with an indifferent face. Thor fist. The hot thunder and lightning flashed, matched with black and armed fists, like a violent storm, almost unbelievable. All the punches greeted Luffy's body and body. The power that poured out of Anilu's body even made the energy come out from behind Luffy. In Luffy's mouth, miserable cries continued to spread out. The powerful attack power made Luffy completely unable to resist. This frantic attack lasted for a full minute before Anilu withdrew his fist. Then, turn around and leave. With tears on her face, Nami shouted and ran towards Luffy. Luffy. She shook Luffy frantically. The latter, with scars all over his body at the moment, looked like he was dying at any moment. I'm fine. Luffy spat out these words weakly, then tilted his head, completely unconscious. not dead yet, he's really a tough guy. Anilu raised his eyebrows, a little surprised. Forget it, I promise Robin, so I won't shoot anymore. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Then, he looked at Nami with a cold face. Take your companions and leave the empty island. This is not where you should be. At this moment, a melodious bell rang through the entire Sky Island. When Anilu raised her head, her eyes flashing. Above the tall tree, Robin smiled and shook the huge golden bell, making it make a loud sound. Luffy was defeated, but the bell still rang. Above Qinghai below. Ace listened to the voice of the phone bug with a serious face and kept nodding. Okay, Blackbeard is in the sea 100 miles away from me. I know, I can get there in 2 days at most. Captain, be careful, that guy, according to our information, has been in touch with the Navy. His face changed slightly, and Ace said with hatred. Even if he joins forces with Lao Su, this time, I won't let him go. The stubborn Ace has a hard time listening to what others say. It is precisely because of his character that he can achieve what he is now, and because of his character, he will also encounter unimaginable difficulties. The wheels of history are rolling forward, and what should come seems to always come. Chapter 397 Two Crazy Men. The end of the first half of the Great Passage, above the Chambord Islands. With a smile on his face, Yang Qing walked towards the auction. Along the way, he and Tizu swept almost all the first half of the entire Great Channel, and he already had 6 devil fruits in his hand. He did not use these 6 fruits directly, but temporarily stored them. Because the temporary strength is enough, and there are too many peerless secrets in the Sword Immortal system, he didn't know how to choose for a while. Simply save the fruit temporarily for later use. And the Chambord Islands, as the ultimate gathering place for pirates, there is a high possibility of the existence of devil fruits here. With this purpose in mind, Yang Qing came here. Another point is that he came here for a very important thing. An hour later, in a secluded house, the two sat opposite each other. On the table, there were 2 sake cups, exuding a misty and fragrant fragrance. Long time no see, your growth really surprised the old man. The old voice sounded and entered Yang Qing's ears. Smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Yang Qing said, "There's nothing to be surprised at. This era of rampant can push all forces forward and make everything move towards that point. I'm just a bigger point among the countless moving points. You are too modest, you already have the power to change the times." The old man shook his head and smiled. This old man was the old man from the Long clan that day. At first Yang Qing suspected that the old man was one of the 5 old stars, but after seeing the 5 old stars, he realized that the old man was actually a leader of the Tianlong people. Change the era. Yang Qing smiled, his face suddenly became serious. What I want is to overthrow this era. The old man's smile dissipated immediately and became solemn. Do you know what you are talking about? How many people will you shake when you say this? I know, but that's my goal. This era has come to an end and a new era is coming. Roger created the era of the great pirates, and what I want to do is to end this era of rampages. Eyes narrowed, and the old man looked puzzled. Then don't you do the same as the sea soldiers? What good will it be for you to end the era of great voyages? You are a pirate. No, I think you misunderstood. You are all too narrow-minded. Yang Qing picked up the wine glass on the table and touched the old man. I want to end this runaway era, overturn everything, and return the world to zero. In the era of rampage, it's time to fall into stillness. What did you say? Are you crazy? You want to destroy the whole world? The old man was horrified and his voice became louder. I said, you are too narrow-minded. All I want to do is to control the world, control everything. The end of the era of the great pirates will usher in a new era. An era of imperialism, an era of great unification. Yang Qing looked contemptuous, as if he had already stood on the top of a high mountain, looking down at the living beings below. That's impossible. 70% of this world is ocean, only 30% of land, and these 30% of land are all islands, not as big as you call it. The possibility of unification, the old man said loudly. Ha ha. Yang Qing laughed, his face became condensed. No, it's your fault. If I say I can do it, I can do it, and I must do it too. You lunatic, the old man cursed. The pioneer of every era will be called a lunatic. However, I will use the facts to prove whether I am a lunatic. Yang Qing sneered, then looked at the old man, and now, old man, what you have to do is a choice. Quote. Bet on me, or bet on this decadent era. The sound was sonorous and powerful, which shocked the old man immediately. Then he fell into deep thought. For half an hour, the old man kept watching, observing Yang Qing's expression, and then his complexion changed. Finally, he sighed heavily. You lunatic. But what I didn't expect was that I was crazy too. Tianlong people will be on your side. But. The old man paused, his face serious. After you have the hope of winning, if you are eliminated first, then the Tianlong people will not be foolish to be the first bird. Please understand this. Yang Qing smiled, he nodded, I understand naturally. Afterwards, the two clinked glasses and talked again for about half an hour before leaving. This was an epoch-making meeting, but it indirectly changed an era. In later generations, this meeting, known as the Hut Dingding meeting, had far-reaching influence. 2 hours later, Yang Qing sat in the auction. After a series of auctions, a devil fruit was placed on the platform. Have you seen it? Devil fruit, the secret treasure of the sea, this is the devil fruit. At this moment, the devil fruit is initially determined to be animal type, but the specific ability is still unknown. There is no record of it in the Devil's Illustrated book. It is conceivable, this is a mysterious fruit. The starting price is 100 million Bailey. Do you want to have magical powers? Do you want to ride the sea? Do you want to ask for the status of the week? Then, come on, come and fight for this devil fruit and win your life. The host's voice is high and powerful, passionate. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Surging, let the atmosphere in the field suddenly become lively. 120 million. 130 million. 135 million. Immediately, the voices of bidding came out one by one. Just like when Yang Qing was a child, at the front of the auction were the Tianlong people, followed by the nobles, and the civilian merchants were at the back of the auction. At this moment, Yang Qing is sitting in the back row of the auction. His goal is very small, and the identity of the 5 emperors is absolutely unclear to ordinary people. In the original book, Kaido and others, if they do not go to the New World, it is difficult to know what they look like. Therefore, even sitting here, Yang Qing was not discovered. Soon, the bidding slowed down. 210 million, is there anyone else? This is the devil fruit of the animal type, maybe it will be of the eudemon's type, does anyone have a chance? The host knew how to look very well, so the face of the big man with the national character who made the bid below turned black instantly. Is there really no more? It is very likely that it will be an eudemon's type. I'll pay 250 million. Suddenly, a shrill voice came out. People followed the sound, and the scene suddenly calmed down. Chapter 398 Retribution. After seeing the person who spoke clearly, everyone present became quiet. Even the person who was about to make a move just now and wanted to make a bid closed his mouth, but there was still a trace of resignation in his eyes. Tianlong people, the bidders are Tianlong people. The high status and deep background make it impossible for anyone to compete with it. Even the host was startled, and then laughed dryly. 250 million, devil fruit, belongs to this lord. This sentence, the host said with certainty, but no one objected, because what he said was the truth. No one dares to bid with the people of Tianlong unless they are tired of living. But at the next moment, everyone thought that the moment when the devil fruit had been assigned, a faint voice floated over. I'll pay 260 million. The sound was very faint and light, but it clearly floated into the ears of the audience, ignoring all the noise. The moment this voice came out, everyone looked at the source of the voice. Whether it was nobles, businessmen, commoners, or people from Tianlong, they all looked behind them. The line of sight kept shifting, getting farther and farther from the front, until finally, when he saw the handsome face with a faint smile, he stopped for a while. This pariah, the Tianlong man who had just made a bid, just now had cold eyes and sat in the last row, obviously the most common civilian. He's courting death. It's over, he's dead, this daring guy, the adults will definitely kill him. Everyone looked at the figure with the bubble in front of them in horror, fearful in their hearts. Bloodshed rarely occurs in the auction hall. Everyone is a member of the upper class of society. If they use force at any time, it is really detrimental to each other's status. However, this does not include the Tianlong people. While enjoying the power given to them by the whole world, these guys are also unscrupulous, brutal and terrifying. Kill him for me. Sure enough, Tianlong spit out this sentence indifferently. The man in the black suit behind him nodded and reached for the weapon on his waist. Their figures have already started to move towards the rear quickly. This scene made countless people's pupils shrink and their hearts became nervous. Kill, kill. People thought silently in their hearts, such a scene, there is no doubt that people are going to start killing people. And the one who was killed was the kid who didn't know how high the sky was and dared to raise the price in front of the people of Tianlong. It is true that people admire Yangqing for being daring enough to compete for prestige by bidding in front of Tianlong people, but there is no doubt that this kid is also stupid. As the men in black suits approached, some people felt sorry for Yangqing. Looking at his face, he is still a young boy, but his life has just begun, but it is already over, which is really a pity. The pistol was silently aimed at Yangqing, the bolt was loaded, and the smell of gunpowder smoke began to waft faintly. I really don't know what to say. Yangqing smiled, but his eyes were sharp. The next moment, the pistols in the hands of the men in black suits were all aimed at Yangqing's body. However, all of a sudden, the void distorted, and an incomparably overbearing aura burst out. Then, it suddenly disappeared. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them, and doubts and fear appeared in their eyes. Just now, they clearly felt a strange aura, which made them throbbing instantly, as if they would fall to the ground in the next moment. Then, they saw that the men in black suits who were close to the young people fell down one by one strangely and lost consciousness. What? Tianlong looked at this scene in shock, his eyes full of incredulity. Yangqing stood up, and he walked forward step by step. At this moment, there was no tyrannical aura emitting, but his power made the audience quiet. Soon, he came to the front. Then he approached the Tianlong person with bubbles and stood in front of him. Looking at this bubbly Tianlong person up close, Yangqing's eyes showed indifference. I once said that this bubble is ugly. Extending his fingers, the bubble burst with a pop sound. Tianlong's whole body trembled, and his hand reached his waist. Do you know what's going to happen when you point the gun at me? Yangqing suddenly said. You must not want to know. The strange power came out, and the Tianlong people were shocked to find that the pistol that he was about to touch was twisted into a ball and turned into scrap metal. He swallowed his saliva quietly, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Obviously, this guy in front of him is definitely not something he can resist. I could crush you with one finger, but it's pointless. There are so many scumbags like you, it doesn't make much sense to kill you. But remember, retribution is in the near future. You bastards will be eliminated one by one. There was a smile on Yangqing's face, but in the eyes of the Long people that day, it looked very gloomy, as if a demon had fangs, very hideous. After swallowing 2 mouthfuls of saliva, the Tianlong people were completely scared. Immediately afterwards, Yangqing turned around and walked towards the platform. The moment he turned around, dozens of people stood up, with cold light flashing in their eyes, pulled out their weapons, and rushed towards him. But in the next moment, a look of horror appeared on these people's faces. My body. It's out of control. Help, what's going on? Immediately afterwards, the sound of poof continued to be heard, and blood splattered all over the place. Tianlong's whole body trembled, his eyes were red, and blood splashed on his face. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. His expression became dull and frightened. Weird power, bold young man. The scene in front of the platform made the people in the back start to make noise, and everyone was looking up with their necks raised. It is beyond everyone's expectations that someone has such courage. Yang Qing came to the host, looked at his stupid eyes, and smiled slightly. This fruit is mine now. As for the money, after a pause, he smiled and pointed to the slump down on the seat. Like a fool, just ask him. If he doesn't give it to you, I'll kill him. The voice was very casual, but it caused the Tianlong people below to tremble and wake up, nodding in horror. I will give. No matter what happens in the future, at least for now, saving your life is the most important thing. Holding the devil fruit with a smile, Yang Qing turned around, his ears moved, and he frowned. The sailors are here, it seems I should go. Finally, after taking a deep look at the Tianlong people on the chair, Yang Qing jumped off the platform, and his figure quickly disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Chapter 399 Fishing Bait. When the densely packed sea soldiers rushed into the auction, Yang Qing had long since disappeared. And it was only at this time that the frightened Tianlong people came back to their senses and let out a long sigh. He was really frightened. That young man was terrifyingly terrifying, and what frightened him even more was that there seemed to be a terrifying aura about that person. World who are not afraid of Tianlong people, but every one of them is a crazy person. If you touch it, you might die. After leaving the auction, Yang Qing walked easily and casually, but his speed was unbelievably fast. Half an hour later, he came to Aunt Xiao's ripping off bar. Rayleigh was not here. Yang Qing was drinking alone. There were not many guests in the bar, 2 or 3, which seemed a little deserted. You're not in the New World, what are you waiting for here? Aunt Xiao said to Yang Qing after taking care of the few guests. What are you waiting for? Yang Qing was taken aback, then smiled, I don't know either. Maybe, waiting for the world to ferment. Shaking his head, Yang Qing stopped talking. Ace has become many times stronger than the original, so will the war on the top start. The answer to all this seems to be unknown. Yang Qing pondered. He was thinking, if there was no turmoil when Luffy and his party progressed to the plot of the original book, then the chaotic era would have to be opened by himself. It's just that this first shot is really hard to shoot. Where to hit? Yang Qing was in trouble, frowning and thinking. Red Earth continent, Navy headquarters, or Advance City, or, directly to the World Court. It seems that it's not that easy. Sighing, Yang Qing decided to wait a little longer. He has a faint feeling that the inertia of history seems to be difficult to change. Even though Ace is already very different from the original, it doesn't seem like the results will change much. Of course, this is just his feeling, not necessarily accurate. The Great Waterway, in the sea area close to the capital of Seven Waters. Ace was lying on the deck, and flames were erupting from the back of the wooden boat, and he was rushing forward quickly. Blackbeard is not far away. He followed all the way, and went straight to this place, but he still didn't catch the despicable boy. This made his heart extremely depressed. He did not expect that this weak guy would be so difficult to deal with. The latest information, that guy is right in front, but I don't know how many times I've reported, but I still haven't caught him. 3 days later, Ace's face was very ugly. He stopped the chasing wooden boat and went to a small island near here. The days of running around have made him very tired, and he needs to rest. The small island is the most common one on the first half of the waterway. It is not big and very quiet. Ace found a restaurant by himself, ordered fried rice, and ate it with a frown. Soon, the meal is over. At this moment, Ace saw the newspaper on the table beside him. Because he was in hot pursuit, he didn't know much about the latest information about the world. After taking a brief glance at the newspaper, Ace's pupils instantly shrank. Luffy, this kid. A smile appeared on Ace's face. There was a big headline in the newspaper, and Luffy's big smile was reflected in it. During the trip to the empty island, the Straw Hats and his group encountered an unimaginable dilemma. The person who controlled the Sky Island was terrible. Luffy challenged Anilu 23 times in total, but he was killed every time. In the end, at Robin's request, Anilu promised them that he would renounce his position and stop using violence. At this time, the Straw Hats and the gang left with confidence. This requirement is nothing to Anilu. Anyway, he is in absolute power in the empty island, and he doesn't care whether he is a god or not. As for violence, he hasn't done it for a long time. What's more, after the training of this batch of Air Force is completed, he will go to the New World, and he will not stay here for long. One of the uses of No's arc is to travel to the New World. Next, everything was the same as in the original book. Luffy and the others came to the Seven Waters and changed boats. Then, they met a little girl named Radish on the way. A group of people got along very well with the Sherville and invited them to join the pirate group. In terms of origin, Sherville and Robin are somewhat similar. The same hometown was destroyed by the Slaughtering Order, and the same secret that the World Court could not tell, was hunted down by the whole world. Until they met Luffy's group, and then, on the trip to Judicial Island, Luffy and others rescued the Sherville, shocking the world. You dare to break into the Judiciary Island, Luffy, you are so brave. Ace said with a smile, but there was no trace of anger in his eyes, but a smile. After that, Luffy and his gang headed towards the Chambord Islands without a doubt. During the trip to Long Chain Island, Luffy encountered the Green Pheasant. The entire army was annihilated, and he was killed in seconds. I heard that you have a brother named Ace. Aokiji's unique hoarse voice made Luffy and the others' faces change. What are you going to do to Ace? Luffy yelled, his arms frozen with ice. What do you do to him? Shinzi raised his eyebrows. You need to care more about yourself than about him. I'm alone, I'm afraid I can't do anything to him. The ice cubes quickly extended, wrapping Luffy's whole body in a blink of an eye, freezing the latter. Then, Aokiji turned to leave. However, I came here to wait for him, but I didn't expect to meet you. Monkey D. Luffy, it's good to do it for yourself, choose the wrong way. This chapter is not over, click on the next page to continue reading. Life is ruined. 5 days later, Ace came to the waters around Long Chain Island. Looking at the frozen ocean ahead, he frowned. Meteor Fire Sea. A little flame rises into the air, then falls down, and finally radiates out. In the blink of an eye, it covered the entire sea. A thick white fog began to emerge, and the high temperature quickly melted the frozen ice. After about an hour, the sea returned to normal, and the frozen ice was all liquid. Body. Seeing this, Ace smiled. Shinzi, I know you're around, but I'm not afraid of you the most. The wooden boat sailed quickly and chased forward. Blackbeard, a group of people, is on the island ahead. The nameless island is only 20 miles away from Ace. Captain, aren't you running? Van Oka asked indifferently. Ha ha ha, no, the bait, these days, have put enough. Next, it's time to harvest. Chapter 400 Titch. Blackbeard's unique laughter came out, and his face was full of hideous smiles. Behind him, the crew of the Blackbeard pirates burst out laughing, and the corners of their mouths were cold. In that battle, the embarrassment of himself and others, and the injuries on his body were still a little painful at the moment. Ace left an unforgettable impression in their hearts, and this deep impression made them burn the flame of hatred. Ace, your good days are coming to an end. 3 minutes later, a lazy figure came to Blackbeard and the others, with a lazy expression on his face, as if he never woke up. Taking a casual glance at Blackbeard and the others, Aokiji said lightly, Is it you who the sea soldiers are talking about? General, Aokiji, Marines, sent you to support us. Blackbeard said in surprise. It was said to be support, but they made it clear that if you don't have enough strength, I will leave at any time. Chingzi said lazily, you are the ones who started, and I am just a soy sauce. Obviously, the General Aokiji who reinforced them was not very interested in jointly attacking Ace. However, the Blackbeards were not disappointed, and they all had smiles on their faces. Haha, that's enough. This time, we must take him down. Soon, time passed, and it was noon. Lafitte, who stayed on the shore to watch, suddenly shouted. He's here, Ace is here. With a shout, the crew of the Blackbeard pirates all stood up, and the indifferent expression on their faces changed to a solemn one. Even the green pheasant, who was hiding on the side, blinked, and caution appeared in his eyes. I really disliked this unfair confrontation. Muttering a word, Aokiji looked at Blackbeard and the others with indescribable disgust. It didn't take a long time to get along, but he hated the aura of Blackbeard and the others. This group of people exudes an evil aura all the time. Even in an alliance, there is no rule that they cannot hate each other. Ha ha ha, Ace. Blackbeard laughed loudly, looking at the man in the cowboy hat who had jumped off the boat and stood on the shore, and greeted him enthusiastically. Tiki, this time, don't you run away. Ace said coldly, glanced around here, and did not see the sea soldiers, and his heart was slightly relieved. The green pheasant was already hidden in the dark, so Ace didn't find it. No, this time we won't run away again. I just hope, Ace, you don't run either. A smile appeared on Blackbeard's face, and the other crew members behind him also laughed. Looking at the strange smiles of the group of people in front of him, Ace became serious in his heart. He clearly knew that this time it must be a conspiracy trap, but he didn't know what Blackbeard was doing. I'll see what you want to do. Eyes narrowed, Ace strode forward. Brothers, the war has begun. Blackbeard shouted, and the surrounding Blackbeard crew immediately dispersed, divided into several corners, and surrounded Ace in the center. Alone, facing a pirate group, Ace's face was indifferent, expressionless, neither nervous nor afraid. Titch, the power level of the new world, don't you understand it? After finding a group of such partners, do you think you can deal with me? A faint rhetorical question made Blackbeard's face change slightly. Beside him, Van Oka's face was cold, and his right hand pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang! A low gunshot sounded, and Ace turned his face to the side, easily dodging the attack. Looks like you don't quite understand. Into flames, and at the next moment, with an explosion, bang, the ground under Ace's feet shattered. Then, his figure disappeared from the eyes of Blackbeard and others. Disappeared. He's gone. Van Oka's eyes widened, but in less than a second, a freckled, grim face appeared in front of him. Be careful. Blackbeard's face changed greatly, and he shouted. But it was too late. Ace's right hand was raised, the flames were burning, and a huge fire fist shrouded Van Oka's head. Burst, fire fist. Only then did Ace slowly spit out these 4 words from his mouth. Burst step, using the explosive power of the flame, instantly increases its speed to an unbelievable level. It is a very explosive movement technique, used in conjunction with the fire fist. It can strike the enemy in the fastest time. Ah! A scream came from Van Oka's mouth, and flames enveloped it. Ace! A loud shout came from behind, and the tall fighter Barshes rushed over, hitting Ace's head with his thick fist. Seeing the color, he tilted his head expressionlessly, the wind swept across his neck, Ace's figure flashed, twisted and disappeared, then turned around, stepped forward, and punched his right fist. Fire fist. With a dull sound of bang, Barshes let out a muffled groan, and his whole body burned with flames. Second kill again. The powerful fire fist Ace, facing the crew of the Blackbeard pirates, was crushed almost from start to finish. Blackbeard looked sweaty, angry in his eyes. This chapter is not over. Click on the next page to continue reading. Flames burst out. These are all the companions he has found from all over the world, and it would be painful for a long time to lose one. Poison Q. Save them quickly, I'll entangle Ace. He strode towards Ace, and the black vortex on his right hand has emerged. Dark water. With a loud roar, the power of attraction emerged, pulling Ace's body directly over. This pulling speed is very fast, stronger than the last time, and the black beard is obvious. During this period of time, the mastery of the dark fruit has reached a new level. Bang! With this punch, Blackbeard actually hit Ace in the stomach, causing the latter's complexion to change and his body to bend. Damn! A punch swept across and hit Blackbeard's head at a faster speed. Bang! Blackbeard screamed and was knocked out. Ace bent over and covered his stomach, sweat dripping from his face. There is no doubt that Blackbeard's fist is not so good. What surprised Ace even more was that he had no idea that this despicable fellow had such great power. I underestimate you, Tiki,